The young man was exhausted. He's fallen into a trap. Looks like the gods aren't on his side this time. The stranger looked at the young man with a twisted face. The veins on his face were bulging. He was very angry. He looked like a monster. The young man regrets not finding the scoundrel who hurt his sister. He also regrets that he could not fulfill his employer's order. He failed. There's panic in the city. There's a sudden storm. People don't know where to go. They don't know what to do. It's unbelievable. After this storm, mankind became slaves to time. Ever since they were born, people had a timeline on their arm. This scale showed the length of life. Once time reaches 0, man becomes a monster, a temporary monster, and the process is irreversible. To survive in this world, a man can kill anyone who claims his time. But not everyone is easy to deal with. The young man failed. The opponent was very strong and cunning, and time was stolen. Guangzhou City Hospital. The girl is wearing an oxygen mask. Recently, outbreaks have become more frequent. That's why there are more inquiries. So our hero decides to take up an old job he once did. He needs to earn enough for a sufficient amount of time capsule. In that case, he can transfer the girl to a better hospital. The young man tells his sister not to worry. Everything will be all right. He will take care of it. The young man recalls how it was. His sister seemed to have had an accident. It was very sudden. He suspects it was an accident. Guy promises his sister he'll find the guy who hurt her and make him pay. It won't go unpunished. A young man hears a conversation with the director. He is offered to take care of the corpses. The director says that there is nothing to take care of them and no need to process them. They are worthless. Just find a place for them and throw them away. Director Wang yells to the young man that it's time to pay up. The young man says payday isn't until tomorrow. The director stated that the price has been raised. The time capsules have already been used up. The guy said that before, the director used to make up excuses to raise the price. Now he just raises the price whenever he wants. The principal yells at the young man to pay up or get his sister. She's already wasted a lot of time capsules. The director stated if he leaves this hospital, his sister will definitely die. The young man looked fondly at his sister. He absolutely must do something. Nothing bad should happen to his sister. Time transfer usually takes place by shaking hands and transferring time from one person to another. 5 time capsules are used in one day. This makes a total of 7 days. The principal said he felt much better when he made time for himself. The director reminded them that this would be enough for 5 days. If the young man did not pay in 5 days, they would be kicked out. The guy's got a lot less time left. He's got to come up with something. This can't go on any longer. The guy has to earn a lot more time capsules. 16 years ago, a meteorite fell from the sky. This meteorite caused massive destruction on the planet. A strange firestorm ensued. All those who touched the firestorm felt the effects. These people became monsters of time. It was a terrible transformation. Such a clock records the duration of each person's life. Time can be traded by interacting with each other. After that happened, time became money. Time became the most reliable currency. Meals require a 2-hour snack, sweets, milk, and tea. It takes 30 minutes for 1 tea and milk. Even if people want to give birth to a child, they have to pay a year of life for it. Otherwise, the child will die. The commodity for temporary relationships was in everything. Those who survived must not only endure the pain of losing their loved ones, they must experience much more stress. These people have to work hard to earn time capsules to continue living. On the other hand, they need to eat, as hunger causes time to shrink even faster. Some of the people got rich through luck. Suddenly, Mr. Wang shouted he was frightened. The young man asked what happened to Principal Wang. The principal shouted, "Look over there. If a man has no time left, he dies. And after death, that person becomes a monster of time. He has no soul, but his body belongs to the monster." The young man saw the time monster. What's it doing here? Doesn't the hospital have reliable security? On the monster's arm was a bracelet. The principal shouted that this bracelet was from the corpse room. The young man wondered, doesn't the corpse room process the body before it becomes a time monster? The principal was frightened. He shouted to the young man to protect him, and then he would give his sister 3 months of free treatment. The young man asked if it was 3 months. The time monster pounced on the principal. The monster's face was twisted with hatred. The director screamed to be rescued. He was very scared. Lin Ki got into a fight with the time monster. The guy attacked him. The time monster screamed very loudly. It was furious. It was a raging time monster. The young man took out a long hunting knife. He was very serious. The guy stabbed this monster with a knife and noticed that this one had turned into a monster not too long ago. Its rank should be around D2. The guy knew the ins and outs of dealing with the monsters of time. The main thing is to destroy the core by stabbing it in the chest. This is to kill him instantly and avoid bad consequences. The young man, skillfully wielding a knife, dealt with the monster. The remains of the monster's body burned in front of the people. The monster was defeated. The young man asked how Director Wang was feeling. The young man hid his knife. Mr. Wang said he didn't expect the boy to be so strong. What's his job? Director Wong shouted for the young man not to touch him, that he wouldn't touch it with the hand that killed the monster. The boy asked, "What about the promise?" The director said he could fuck off if he couldn't pay in 5 days. The guy was mad at him. Sooner or later he would die. The young man decided that this neighborhood was too dangerous. He can't let his sister stay here. He has to solve the issue of her housing. The young man decided to call someone. The girl continued to lie unconscious. A young man is talking on the phone. He said his name is Lin Ki. He is a night wanderer they wanted to recruit. He accepts their offer and asks them to send everything they need. In this crazy apocalyptic world, the refuge of mankind was the city of Quanzhou. There were 4 large night squads in the city. The Knights Band of Fame protects the city, provides security, and prevents illegal events, as do the police officers. The Night Defense Team acts as the town guardians, protecting the townspeople by preventing the invasion of temporary zombies and monsters. A nightly band of marauders cleans out the surrounding houses and extracts resources for Quanzhou City. A nightly band of wanderers single-handedly carry out wilderness missions and maintain relations with the city. Each night group has its own tasks and clearly delineated powers. Sometimes the groups interact with each other to achieve a better result. A young man with equipment and wearing a protective mask approached the gate. The guard stopped him and asked him to show his pass to enter. The young man showed his pass and said that he was Lin Ki. Uncle Liu didn't recognize him. This was a wild area. It was very dangerous here, and ordinary people were not allowed to leave the city without permission. Uncle Liu asked the young man how his sister was feeling. The young man said that she still hadn't woken up. He asked Uncle Liu to open the door because he had to go to town. Uncle Liu said that the young man was taking care of himself and being cautious. Recently, there were many stray monsters roaming the neighborhood, and the bridge towards the city was broken. The gate opened, and the young man stepped out. His uncle wished him good luck. There was dangerous territory ahead. Uncle thought that this young man went with the usual equipment to fulfill a wanderer's mission. He doesn't even have a motorcycle. This young man is a genius knight who almost went to an apocalypse boot camp, and now he has descended to such a thing. Uncle Liu sighed. The young man was moving away from the city. There was emptiness all around and dust in the air. It was a wilderness. The guy noticed that after leaving the city, the cell phone signal was lost. The guy knew that the distance between the cities was 80 kilometers. If he had some transportation, he could return within a day. But to pay his sister's medical bills, he sold all his valuable equipment and even his favorite motorcycle. Without transportation, he can only travel on foot, and the entire journey will take him more than 3 days. Lin Ke realized that he would have to spend the night in the wilderness area. It was dangerous and risky, but there was no other way out. Evening came. The young man had to find a safe place to sleep for the night. The purpose of the mission was to deliver this item to Ming City. If everything went according to plan, he would receive 300 days of reward. The city was abandoned. There were ruins all around. However, it was not safe to travel alone in this city. Such tasks were usually assigned to knights who were wanderers. It was getting dark outside. It was already late at night. No lodging could be found yet. The boy moved cautiously through the city. In front of our hero, someone appeared. Judging by the glowing core, it was a time monster. The young man asked who he was. The guy realized it was a temporary zombie. It was hard for the young man. He was in a foreign territory. Lin Ki thought that this was still a suburb. It wouldn't be far from here to the city. A group of marauding knights should have cleared this place. Where did the temporary zombie come from here? The guy noticed that the light in his chest was faint. It must be a rank D3 zombie. The night wanderer drew his hunting knife. He knew how to deal with such encounters. The zombie grinned, its eyes glowing, and it snarled at the young man. There was no time to think. Lin Ki wrapped his hands around his knife and swung it. You must have iron nerves and a strong grip. The boy knew at what moment to strike. When the opponent was just a short distance away, he lunged forward and pierced through the time monster. The young man aimed straight at the time crystal. The blow was accurate. The zombie shrieked and flew aside. The time crystal popped out of his chest. Lin Ke walked over to the breathless body. A glowing time crystal was lying next to it. The chest of a temporary zombie, that's their weak spot. By shattering the time crystal, people can absorb the time energy inside. Such time zombies that travel alone are the easiest to hunt. The young man added 130 days to his life. The boy thought it was a great reward for today's hunt. It was a kind of bonus when meeting time monsters. A wild roar sounded over the city. The young man realized that more zombies were roaming somewhere. As it was, 3 time zombies appeared. They were of large build. The boy lurched to the side. He considered that it wasn't luck. Suddenly, 3 temporary zombies appeared, and they were all D rank 5 monsters. Even if he was at the peak of his strength, he could only handle 2 D rank 5 zombies. The young man, without giving himself away, quickly ran away. The boy knew that this place was very dangerous. He must go up the stairs and hide first of all. He tried not to let anyone see him. The young man was unlucky. He was caught in the eye of the time monster after all. This big guy with a glowing chest started growling at him and bared his teeth. The young man looked at the monster's chest and tensed up. This is a D rank 7 monster. Although the young man was a night wanderer, he definitely could not defeat this monster. The only way out was to escape, which the young man did. The boy was running away from the monster and kept repeating, "He can't die." The monster jumped and tried to catch up with the young man. The young man kept repeating that his sister was waiting for him. At some point, the monster caught up with the wanderer and tried to bite him on the shoulder. At one point, the young man managed to break free. He shouted that he wasn't going to die here and ran further up the stairs. As he ran away, the young man noticed that the monster had fallen and was lying down. Lin Ke was advancing with an injured shoulder. The guy went out on the roof of the house, had to calm down and look around. There was no one around. The young man pulled out his backpack. He needed a first aid kit to treat the wound. There was only one exit on the roof. The young man heard someone climbing the ladder. The guy drew his knife. There's no other way out, he can only take his chances. The monster kicked in the door and snuck onto the roof. The boy threw off his cloak. He had a hunting knife in his other hand. The young man yelled for the man to attack, and they would see which one of them would die. The monster wanted to grab the young man, but the boy dodged and put a knife into the monster. The monster wasn't ready for this. It screamed. The young man pressed even harder on the knife handle. The knife in the monster's body almost reached the crystal. The monster almost reached his hand to our hero's head. The guy couldn't penetrate the monster's body to the crystal. The beast pushed our hero, and he flew backwards. The monster rushed toward the young man. This monster opened its mouth and tried to bite the wanderer. The boy was lying on his back. The monster tried to reach him with its teeth. The boy put his foot on his opponent's neck. The young man was able to throw his opponent off the roof and down to the ground with his last strength. The time monster flew down with a scream. He's not going to die from this height, the young man thought. The young man turned his attention to the fact that he was too badly injured. His shoulder was bleeding. He didn't have time or desire to think about the monster that had flown away. The young man looked at the time dial. Not even God could save him. The young man thought for a moment. He mentally asked his parents to forgive them because he had failed to protect his sister. The young man apologized to his sister for not being able to find that scoundrel to avenge her. The guy apologized to the customer for not being able to complete his assignment. The guy felt heavy. He hated it all. He didn't have the moral strength anymore. The young man dropped the stone he was supposed to deliver to the customer. A virtual screen appeared in front of the young man. The time system activated. It was all unexpected. Lin Ke stood on the roof of a house in an abandoned city and dealt with the system. The young man looked at his time meter. Had his time stopped shortening? The guy also noticed that he was healed early. What it all means. The screens presented the young man with data on his armament, uniforms, and standard of living. Lin Ke couldn't believe it all. Could this not be a dream? The young man received a D-rank weapon, D level 6, improved equipment, and a D-rank skill book. The guy's been going over his specs. The system had given him. He had a dagger of burning flame, noiseless shoes. He can now increase his speed and reduce the noise when he moves. The young man appeared to have excellent equipment and no wound on the shoulder. The guy still couldn't believe it was real. It is not a dream and it is not an illusion. It's amazing. The door opened, and a scarred monster walked onto the roof. He could barely waddle. He was having a hard time after falling to the ground. The young man had a good opportunity to check his equipment. The young man thought, as expected, this ghastly monster is not dead. It turned out to be very persistent. The guy may have gotten 2 weapon upgrades, but he's still a rank D7 zombie, and his lifespan is only 1 second. The young man realized that he had to be very careful. If he received any damage, he would die immediately. The zombie went limp and advanced towards the young man. He didn't stop growling. The guy noticed that the zombie's leg was broken. That should affect its speed. The young man decided that he could win if he was careful. When the zombie was close and decided to strike the young man skillfully dodged it and swung his new dagger. The boy realized that he had to be very careful. So far, everything was going according to plan. He decided that this time he would be able to punch the monster through. The guy used an improved skill, the crushing mountain fist. It helped him crush the zombie. The dagger pierced through it. The downed zombie fell to the roof of the house. The crystal fell out of his chest and rolled to the side. The boy was pleased. It used to be such an intimidating zombie. Now the young man had killed it with a single blow, though he was weakened himself. The young man had some perspective. The guy picked up the time crystal. The young man clutched this crystal in his fist, and the system recorded the achievement. The young man couldn't believe it. His strength hadn't increased for a long time, and now after killing the monster, his strength had increased to D rank 7. Confronting life and death trials was the fastest way to increase his level. The system offered a young man a D rank store. The young man decided to check it out. The guy checked and noticed that there was even a gene potion here. and a mental spirit potion. That's very convenient. The young man thought that this thing could forcibly awaken the elements. He had heard that physical awakening and elemental awakening couldn't exist together. No one could have both. The young man in the system familiarized himself with what physical awakening is. The system also provided the young man with information on what the awakening of the elements was. The system provided the young man with a very rare attribute. It was lightning. The guy realized that he now has physical strength and power versus strength. He is stronger than before and will now be able to hunt time zombies even faster. The young man thought his sister might be waiting for him now. He feels differently about himself. The guy heard someone yelling at him from behind. They asked him if he was still alive. A young girl stood in front of him. The guy asked if she was the customer. The girl told him to stop calling her customer. She has a name. Her name is Shu Wei. The guy said it doesn't matter what her name is. It is important to know why she is here. The girl said she was worried, and that's why she followed the young man. The girl asked where her subject was. The young man said that he had accidentally lost it. The girl was very much upset. It was a birthday present for her mom. Shu Wei said that she almost died to receive this gift. The guy asked where she got the rock from. The girl said she found it. It looked beautiful, and she took it with her and decided to give it to her mom for her birthday. If the guy lost it, he would have to pay the girl. The boy noted that the girl knew nothing of the stone's abilities. The girl recalled what she had promised the guy as payment. She doesn't want much. It's enough if he gives her back 300 days. The young man said that's reasonable, but he doesn't have that many days right now. The guy asked if he could give her 100 days first. He would return the rest later. Shu Wei said yes. The young men shook hands and time flowed. The girl thought she had picked up the stone by accident. No one at the jewelry store wanted it. And here she had earned 300 days free. The girl reminded him that the young man still owed her 200 days. If he wanted to run away, she would sue him. Shu Wei said she was leaving first. When the young people were parting, Lin Ke asked the girl where she got the stone. The girl said it was near the Mingquan Bridge, which had been blown up by people. The guy had different information. He thought the bridge was destroyed because of the toxic rain. Why did the girl say it was blown up? Shu Wei said because she was nearby and saw everything with her own eyes. The guy wondered if the bridge had been blown up. The girl decided that she would have to figure out how to find the Wanderer Knight with the car to get back to Ming City. In an abandoned city, many monsters have appeared on the streets. A guy from around the corner was watching the girl. There were monsters all around. The young man wondered how this girl managed to escape from monsters. The young man noticed that he didn't have much time left. He should hurry up and kill some of the creatures. Lin Ke noticed that if he was careful, he could kill 3 D5 level monsters at the same time. The guy jumped out from around the corner and attacked one monster. He didn't even have time to blink his red eye. The monster screamed. The young man hit him in the chest with his fist. The first monster was struck. The dagger pierced through it. The guy was pleased with himself. It was a simple matter. Taking the time crystal from a monster was like taking candy from a child. The young man was trying to get the time crystal. The young man dealt with all 3 monsters in a few seconds. So much prey in such a short time, he thought. The boy was pleased with himself. Lin Ke thought it was a great way to get a head start, to earn some more time before returning. He would be able to move to the outer region, change the hospital for his sister. The young man decided what he would do next. The destroyed monster was lying nearby. A young man decided to purchase a genetic potion. In order to do so, he had to pay back the time. The system helped the young man make the trade, and he parted with some of his time. The young man took the potion and increased the power of his punches. The young man drank 4 bottles of genetic potion and went from level D7 to D8. It wasn't cheap, but it was still faster than normal training. If he practiced, it would take him a whole year. Guy's been taking down monsters all day. He developed superficial wounds. He needs help. We need to get a healing potion. Aside from water and food outside of the city, medical supplies are the most valuable. Absorbing time crystals is profitable, but if you're not careful, there will be more time lost than earned. The young man spent time on what he needed. It was expensive, but it saved time compared to conventional treatment. The guy got himself some gloves. They could be used as a shield and could greatly increase the piercing ability in an instant. Now he could kill a D9 rank zombie with a single blow. The boy thought that this time of day was not conducive to staying here. It's time to go back. Suddenly the young man heard cries for help. Who could it be? The young man tried to discern in the night who the plea for help was coming from. The guy saw 3 monsters chasing Shu Wei. The girl runs away from them and screams. Shu Wei ran into the room and closed the door behind her. She propped this door open and tried to keep the monsters from breaking in here. The monster breached the wall and tried to grab the young lady with its hands. The girl thought in fear that this was the end. No one would help her now. The girl noticed that there was silence on the other side of the door, and the monster was no longer visible. Suddenly, there was a voice that said that everything was all right, and she could go out. This voice seemed familiar to the girl. Shu Wei looked out from behind the door and saw the young man. There were 3 defeated monsters lying nearby. The girl wondered if it was him. The young man was holding time crystals in his hands. The young man asked why the girl was being chased by monsters, why she wasn't coming home. The girl said that she had hired a knight to take her back to the city, but it turned out to be very dangerous. The knight's motorcycle broke down on the way, and they were attacked by a bunch of temporary monsters. She had to run. The guy asked what city she wanted to go back to. The girl said the city was called Quanzhou. The guy said the girl was being sneaky because she had talked about another city before. The young man assumed that the delivery of the item was just a ruse, and the girl chose him because he had no means of transportation and was easier to follow. Shu Wei said that the young man is wrong, and apparently he doesn't like to trust people. The young man decided that, apparently, he was right. The girl was frightened, squirmed, and screamed at him not to hit her. The young man said he was on his way back to town, and he offered to keep her company, or she could stay here alone for the night. The girl agreed because he didn't really have much of a choice. The guy asked what kind of person had agreed to bring her to this town. The girl called his name, said he was a level D8 wanderer but was now most likely dead. From the name, the young man guessed that this traveler was most likely his Uncle Ho. Over the years, Lin Kei has witnessed the deaths of countless people, both strangers and loved ones. This world is very cruel. The young men walked back to the city. Lin Kei and Shu Wei were on their way back to the city. The road back was exhausting. There were no zombies along the way. The young man said hello to Uncle Liu and said he had accomplished his mission. This girl is with him. The girl said that this town was a mess and unfriendly to foreigners. When you enter, you have to pay for 3 days' stay. Her town is much better. The guy objected, said her town was greedy too. You have to pay 5 days' rent at the entrance. The girl said maybe. She's not a stranger in her town, so she doesn't pay to enter. The girl deactivated her hiking clothes. Zhu Wei said that it is more comfortable. The windproof mode of clothing is very uncomfortable. The young lady stretched and smiled. The guy was looking at her at this time. The girl snapped at him, to which he stared, though it was already clear what he could be looking at. There was a pretty girl next to him. He had no chance of not looking at her. The young man said he hadn't noticed before that she had a nice figure and looked good. The girl flirted. Yes, she is naturally beautiful. The boy reminded her that the bridge to the city was broken. The alternative route was through a dead zone. The young man has friends who know the area very well. If necessary, he can introduce her to them. After the firestorms, the infrastructure was destroyed. Much of the area outside of the city was turned into a wasteland. Shu Wei said that she would have no problem figuring it out on her own. The guy gave the girl his card and told her that this was his home address. If she had any problems, she could go to him. The young man said goodbye and said that maybe they would see each other again. The girl studied the business card carefully. She decided to return home as soon as possible. It would be better to die at the hands of her mother than in the slums of Qianzhou, she thought. The young man walked up to the huge hospital building. There were guards standing below. Some man jumped out into the street and shouted for help. His eyes were frightened. The guy was screaming in terror that there were people inside, and they needed help. The young man thought that his sister might be in danger. He thought that his sister might be in danger. The young man rushed to the hospital, with terrified people running towards him. Lin Kei called out to his sister, running into her room. The girl was still lying unconscious in the oxygen mask. The young man looked at his sister. Her face was calm. Her eyes were closed. The young man calmed down. The sister was all right. The girl is safe for now. Director Wang ran into the room. He had a look of fear on his face. The fatty was overjoyed when he saw the young man. He shouted for Lin Kei to protect him. The guy was angry at Director Wang. Why on earth should he protect him? Last time, the principal had been ungrateful. The man shouted that he would give the young man back 300 days. He needed his protection. He has no one else to count on. Director Wang grabbed Lin Kei's arm. The boy looked at his time Iran. Indeed, he thought. Fatty had brought back 300 days. Apparently, he was seriously scared. Director Wang huddled in a corner. His eyes were crazy. A young man asked why this is even happening at the hospital. Director Wang replied that it was because of funding. The hospital cannot afford to process the bodies. The guy said with a smirk in response. Of course it wasn't because of his greed. The time zombies burst into the room. The monsters screaming and wriggling moved toward the humans. They were hungry for living flesh. The young man ordered the system to activate the glowing blade. The young man prepared for hand-to-hand combat. The guy didn't wait for the monsters to approach him. He moved toward them himself. The young man struck all the monsters with his blade. Time crystals flew out of them. The young man was invincible. The boy noted that these monsters were very weak. They posed no threat to him. It was easy. Lin Kei gathered all the time crystals. He didn't even feel the tension. Everything happened as a matter of course. Director Wang sat in the corner on the floor with his head down. He didn't move. The boy noticed that the man's chest had developed a glow. That was a bad sign. The young man looked at Principal Wang. Plus another zombie, he thought. I'll have to transfer my sister to another hospital that's better than this one. Director Wang, with a face blazing with rage, decided to pounce on our hero. The boy managed to bounce aside at the last moment. The director fell to the ground. The young man noticed that it was the guy who had finally turned into a temporary zombie. The young man realized that he was not reincarnated because of a natural death. He had more than 20,000 days on his account. The more time left in a person's unnatural death, the more likely they are to turn into a powerful temporary zombie. The guy thought that Director Wang might have become a C6 level zombie. He must be destroyed before he fully transforms. Otherwise, it would be a disaster for the whole city. The guy commanded the system to activate the boots and armbands, and decided to use the mountain-shattering punch. Fully equipped, Lin Ki rushed towards this terrifying monster. There was no time to waste. The newfound monster blocked the young man's punch. That wasn't good. The big guy threw the guy far back. The monster had tremendous strength. The young man fell to the floor, coughing up blood. The fall was painful. Lin Ko realized that Director Wang had almost completely transformed. He now possessed terrifying strength. There was no way to defeat him in close combat. As the monster continued its final transformation, the young man told the system to activate the store. We need to purchase something. The young man began to scrutinize, wasting no time as to what he could purchase right now. The guy decided to purchase a healing potion and a gun of the strongest shot. All this was expensive, but there was no time to think about it. The young man confirmed to the system that he was acquiring it all. Director Wang finished transforming and quickly rushed towards the young man. The guy took a potion that increased his strength and told the fat guy to go to hell. The young man fired a shot that pierced this powerful zombie through and through. The hospital was approached by armed groups. They've got it surrounded. Now the special forces will be in charge of catching the zombies. It was Chi Jun, the Knight of Glory. Knight Captain. He ordered that the situation be reported to him. The soldier said that there was chaos inside. Tentatively, there are 5 temporary zombies in there. The captain's orders are to block all exits and destroy any zombies that get in the way. You'll be able to get a lot of time crystals out of these guys. Everyone outside heard gunshots coming from inside the building. Something was going on in there. The captain took a deputy with him and decided to check what happened inside, and where the source of the gunshots was. The military headed inside the building. They were on alert. More forces pulled towards the hospital. There were specialized vehicles ready to transport the temporary zombies. The military stormed the premises. There were more zombies than originally thought. Already at the entrance, the military began to fight with the monsters. There were zombies at every turn. Without firearms, it would have been hard. Only by shooting the zombies through and through could they be destroyed. At the same time, you had to collect time crystals. The military code stated that when encountering time zombies, the priority was to acquire a time crystal. Even if the time crystal was taken away by someone, it would still be confiscated afterward. There were 3 more temporary zombies moving towards the military. It could be seen by the characteristic movements and the glowing spots on their chests. The captain told his subordinate that he was going to the East Wing, where the shots were coming from, and he was to restore order here. The subordinates immediately rushed to restore order. The captain rushed to the east side to the hospitals. The night captain began to check all the floors in sequence. On one of the floors, the military man saw a young man. He was holding a time crystal in his hands. A time zombie was lying next to him. The captain walked closer and asked what Lin Kei was doing here. Former Director Wang was lying at his feet. The young man recognized the captain. It was Uncle Jun. He had to explain everything to him. The young man clenched the time crystal in his fist. The guy said his sister was in that hospital. She needs constant care. She's been here since the car accident. Captain Knight used to be a wanderer. You could say he's Lin Kei's colleague. The captain asked, did the young man destroy the monster himself? Director Wang died an unnatural death. It was level C. How did the young man deal with it? The young man explained that Director Wang hadn't fully transformed yet, and he had time to seize the moment. The young man gently adjusted his sister's blanket. The captain thought that even if this zombie didn't have time to fully transform, it should take a lot of strength to neutralize it. Most likely, Lin Kei had already outgrown the D level. The boy asked why Uncle Jun was here. What's the reason? The captain explained that he was promoted to Knights of Glory 2 weeks ago. He was now in charge of this area. Lin Kei shouted for his uncle to be more careful. A time zombie appeared from behind the wall, and it was about to pounce on the captain. The zombie had already opened its mouth, about to sink its teeth into the military man's neck. It let out a loud roar. There was no time to think. The young man drew his weapon and fired at the zombie. The shot reached its target. The captain flipped this zombie off and told him to die. The military man fired a test shot at the nearest monster. It was standard procedure. 85. There was a big hole in his chest. The captain lamented that he almost got caught. After this incident, the captain said that the young man had already reached the D8 level. He hadn't seen the young man for a long time. The boy asked how he could help Uncle Jun. The captain thanked the lad for his help and said that this was the work of the Knights of Glory. and offered to talk to the young man after the job was finished. The young man agreed. 10 minutes later, the captain received a report that 63 people had died unnatural deaths, but 28 time crystals had been converted. The casualty rate is getting higher and higher. The military and medics were deactivating after killing all the monsters. The captain asked how Lin Kei was feeling. The young man said that he was fine, just a few transformed crystals. The guy bragged. It gave him a lot of money back. Now he could take care of his sister. The captain sent everyone in the room away. He wanted to talk one-on-one with the young man. The guy realized that this was about to be an unpleasant conversation, and he was going to be asked questions. The captain asked where the young man had gotten that gun. The young man lied, saying he found it outside of town a couple days ago. Such weapons should be clearly controlled and numbered. The captain told the young man to remember to hide it. If anyone other than him saw the weapon, the boy would be in big trouble. The young man thanked him and said he would. Uncle Jun advised the young man, in the future, he should be careful not to use the system's weapons in the presence of people. The captain knew that 6 months ago, the young man's sister had been in an accident. So he applied for an extended leave of absence to care for her. He realized that the boy wouldn't sit still, but he didn't expect him to be at a level that could surpass that of the captain. The young man said he's a long way from being a captain, and he still has a lot of work to do. The military man gave advice. The guy can't train and take care of his sister at the same time, so he will waste his talent. The captain announced that the Doomsday training camp was recruiting again. The young man should try again. He has a chance to enroll, and that would be a good thing. The boy was interested in this information. The young man had been interested in this camp before. This camp was established 5 years ago. Those who were selected at the camp received the best treatment and resources. It was a place where really strong people were cultivated. This camp had an annual enrollment. People with exceptional talent were accepted. Last year, a young man participated, but was not successful. The young man looking at his sister thought that if he got into the camp, not only he but also his family would be protected. His sister would be able to be treated in the exclusive hospital of the research center. The boy mentally thanked Uncle Joe and said that he would definitely think about it. The captain said goodbye to the young man and said he had more to do. The captain said he had faith in the young man. Lin Kei decided that he would definitely enter this camp this year. He would try very hard. The boy came to another neighborhood in the city. It had once been a luxurious neighborhood, but now it was almost deserted because it was built on the outer edge of the city. The young man knew that there were far more houses than people here now, and one could live in any house. The boy chose a place on the bottom floor, to have more time, to react in case of danger. The young man went to his house. No one was waiting for him. The boy noticed that the pain in his chest was no longer severe. He seemed to be getting used to it. The young man decided to take a shower after a hard day. There was nothing but the sound of the water. The guy came out of the shower wiping his head. He told the system to open the store. He wanted to check out the assortment again. Lin Kei studied what is available in the store. The guy noted that the effect of the healing potion is very good. It is as effective as a 200-day bottle of healing potion sold on the street. But in the system corrected, anything he purchases from the store, he can only use on himself. He can't sell it. In order to qualify for residency in the outer region, a young man must make a deposit of 300 days per person. He had time enough for him and his sister to move in. The money he had left, he decided to use it for renovations. The guy realized that he couldn't raise his strength yet, because he had already risen 2 levels in a row, so he decided to raise his ability level. Psychotropic potion can be used to improve mental abilities, with which you can further increase the power of skills. The guy could also take up meditation. This would allow him to rethink all his skills to improve them. There wasn't enough money for meditation. I needed to work on the monsters, to get the crystals out of them. The guy decided to buy back only the psychotropic potion for now. A bottle of this potion was able to raise his mind power to D2 level. It had cost him 500 days. The young man liked it and wanted to repurchase another bottle of the same product. The system said the guy had the desired effect and got a chance to win the lottery. Time became scarce again, but with each improvement in his score, he got a chance to enter the lottery. The guy told the system to play the lottery. The young man was lucky. He won a lottery for a meditation worth 2,000 days. Lin Kei thought that when his mind power caught up with his strength level, he could become invincible. He would now be able to deal with sea-level enemies. The guy immediately decided to use stargazing meditation. The young man assumed the lotus posture and began to meditate. Someone distracted him. The boy heard a knock on the door. The young man knew that this part of the city was frequented by robbers who would fraudulently take time. "You have to be careful." The young man asked who was there. On the other side of the door stood Shu Wei. She motioned for the young man to open it for her. The guy was a little surprised. He asked how the girl was doing. The girl said hello and said he invited her to come to him if anything. The girl told me that she had been tricked. A night traveler named Zhao promised to take her back to her city in 200 days. He took the money up front, but he didn't deliver. It was the knight-errant who told the girl to wait, went to fetch the motorcycle himself, and disappeared. That's not fair. The young man asked how the girl had contacted him. On her own, or through the order. The girl complained that she had very little time left. She had no choice but to come here. The guy stated that he would pay her back for the remaining 200 days. The girl was upset. She couldn't go back to her town yet anyway. The guy thought, if it wasn't for her, he wouldn't have gotten the system and would be in the position she was in now. Lin Ke said that the girl was also a fighter and asked what level she was. The girl replied that she was a D5 level fighter. The young man said he could introduce the girl to people who would find her a job among the knights. Shu Wei asked what kind of job. The young lady was already looking for a job to cover her expenses, but it is very difficult to find a good job. A guy stated that his sister was in an accident and is unconscious. He needs someone to take care of his sister and protect her. The girl said that this was a job she could do. The young man decided to test the girl immediately and told her to attack him. The girl told the guy to be careful because she wouldn't hold back. Shu Wei pointed her fist of fury towards the young man and said, "Receive." The guy easily stepped aside. The girl lost her balance, rushed forward. The boy tripped her. Expectedly, the girl stretched out on the floor and said, "Uh-oh." The young lady said that it was indecent to treat girls like that. And the guy was being very inappropriate. And she was hurt. The young man asked how she managed to get to D5. Did she only go on medication? The guy thought it was a girl, probably the eldest daughter in the family. The young man noticed that the girl was very weak. How did she manage to get out of the building then, being unnoticed by the temporary zombies? Shu Wei hesitated for a moment. She thought about what to say. The guy noticed this and said that everyone has their secrets. If he doesn't want to, he doesn't have to tell them. The girl announced that she has a thing that makes her invisible, but it only works on temporary monsters that are 3 levels stronger than her. Lin Ke said that the girl passed the test. From tomorrow, she will be in charge of his sister's care. The daily wage is 2 days. The girl agreed. By local standards, it was a very good salary. The girl thought, this guy's not a bad person, though he's weird. The young people broke up. The boyfriend told her to come tomorrow at 7:30 and he would take her to the hospital. The girl asked if the fee included lodging, if he didn't have much room for her accommodation. Lin Ke asked where the girl had lived before. You replied that it was in Silton. The guy knew that Silton is a 5-star hotel, and the fee is 10 days per night. That's very expensive. The young man let the girl stay here. But he added, shouldn't a beautiful girl be worried when she is alone with a man? The girl said she wasn't afraid. He's already taken the test, too. If he wanted to do something to her, he would have done it a long time ago. The young people agreed. The next morning came. The young men approached the territory of the hospital. There were reinforced patrols at the entrance. The young man said security and safety had been beefed up because of yesterday's incident. The young men walked to the ward where the girl was lying. The young man showed the girl and said it was his sister. She was still unconscious. Lin Ke told him that Shu Wei's job was to look after his sister. In a few days, he would hire another person to take turns with the girl when he left here. The girl said she would take care of his sister. He could rest easy. She won't let him down. The young man said he was leaving. He'll be back when he's done with his business. Entrance to the outer area. To qualify, a young person must first enter the outer area. Lin Ke showed the guard a time counter. Not everyone was allowed in here. The guard said the young man had more than 300 days. Access to the outer zone is only open to people with more than 300 days on their account. This is to prevent random people from entering, thereby reducing crime. There was a different atmosphere in the outer zone. People here were freer and more relaxed. The young man approached the grounds of the Doomsday Camp. The boy was confident. He decided that this time he would definitely succeed. Candidates for enrollment in the camp went through registration. As always, there were a lot of people who wanted to enroll. Lin Ke showed his ID card. An SUV drove into the territory adjacent to the camp at high speed, almost hitting pedestrians. The driver wasn't very careful. He was yelling that everyone should move aside when he was driving. Cars in this city were considered a symbol of wealth. If a person could afford a car, he was definitely not ordinary. People decided it was better not to argue with this driver. The driver parked his car spectacularly, taking up several parking spaces at once. It was very pompous. The driver turned off the engine and opened his car door. The young men got out of the car. The guy slammed the door loudly. The young man immediately started indecently molesting the girl. She said that people were watching. The girl tried to push him away. The young man said smugly that with him she could be unafraid of other people's gazes. One of the candidates asked who it was who was so too brazen to drive up in a car. It was explained to him that it was Zhao Cheng'an. He had served as a captain in the Wanderer Squad even before his 18th birthday. Lin Ke was surprised. Could this Wanderer Knight really be at such a young age? This Wanderer Knight might have already been at the C rank. Some of the guys said he's already at the D8 level. The young man wondered how he could become a captain. To do so, one must at least possess a level C strength. The young man said that he was not a lawbreaker. After all, he is the second son of the Zhao family from the inner region. The boy remembered the name Zhao Chang'an. Shu Wei had told him that someone with that name had promised to move her to another city, but had deceived her. Could it have been him? Our hero decided to look into the matter. Lin Ke took a picture of this upstart. 10 minutes later, the examiner was already talking about the rules for entering the camp. He said there were 3 tests. The first, a comprehensive physical fitness test, and he told everyone to follow him. The clerk on duty told all candidates to line up and not to crowd. There were quite a few who wanted to enroll in camp this year. Everyone's gathered on the second floor. The first physical test is a comprehensive test of strength, speed, and reflexes. The use of enhanced weaponry or other methods is prohibited. The examiner said the speed test is a 100-meter race. Whoever's name he says has to go out. Lin Ke asked the TS of the upstart. Was he the one who cheated someone for 200 days yesterday? Zhao Chang'an asked if it was really his friend. He had never seen such naive people yet. If it wasn't him, then someone else would have tricked her. Lin Ke turned red with anger and asked if she deserved to be deceived. The guy made a joke. The cost of escorting people isn't cheap these days. Not to mention that in 200 days, he is not going to give anyone a ride in his car. Lin Ke said that after the deception, the girl only has 10 days of life left. Zhao Chang'an said that it was none of his business. Everyone dies, and she is no exception. Lin Ke said that that rascal was not worthy of being a traveler. Zhao Chang'an replied that he should mind his own business. Zhao Chang'an said that he knows about the young man's sister who is lying in the hospital. If he doesn't keep quiet, something might happen to the sister. Lin Ke said that bastard will answer for what he said. He doesn't forgive such things. Zhao Chang'an asked our hero, is he even aware of the position he is in now? At this moment, the examiner appeared and said that Lin Ke would be next. The examiner asked if the young man was ready for the exam. The young man said he was ready. On the way, he kneaded his shoulder. Then let's get started, said the examiner. The guy gave out the 100-meter race on the treadmill with a result of 4.35 seconds. All the candidates started talking about him. It was very fast. He's at least D8 level. Some lamented that it's strong guys again this year. There's a lot of competition. For example, Lin Ke improved his score from last year. The young man's rival said he would make him die in shame after they fought each other. Next was the strength test. Lin Ke's punch was 856 kilograms. This was also a good result. The young man was pleased with himself. A normal D8 level fighter only hits 800 kilo. This year, the kid has a good record and a good chance of getting into camp. The third test was a reaction test. 10 automatons randomly fired 100 high-speed bouncing balls within 10 seconds. You have to dodge 60 or more swords. It was a tough assignment. The guy dodged as best he could. The balls fell chaotically and practically covered the entire arena. You had to have amazing agility and excellent reactions. Those observing noted that the young man scored 60 points very quickly. This was a good score. The test continued, with the scoreboard marking 80 points. The candidate's jaws dropped. 100 points. That's the best score. That's excellent. Zhao Chang'an was angry with envy. How could this be? 100 points. Not a single ball hit him. That's the kind of thing a man can do. His previous best was 81. The candidates awaited their fate. It should be announced who has been admitted. In fact, the young man knew he was psychic. With mental power, he could perceive the subtle movements of each machine gun and react in advance. The young man asked the examiner if he had passed his first test. He nodded in the affirmative. The examiner announced that Lin Ke, who had passed the comprehensive physical fitness test perfectly, would be granted access to the next stage. It was announced to everyone that the first test was over. Everyone going to the second test had to go to the next room. The examiner said they were moving on to the second test. The second test is a fight where you can use all your techniques and enhancements. The two go into the ring to make up forces. The winner advances to the next round. The examiner announced the first contestants. The young men prepared themselves and started the battle in the arena. The other candidates watched them. The judges stood around the perimeter. Zhao Chang'an told our hero that he was very bold recently. Just a little more, he will realize his place. Lin Ke asked if the latter was really sure that they would be sparring together. Zhao Chang'an said that he didn't even doubt it. The examiner announced the next pairing, Zhao Chang'an versus Lin Ke. The boy wondered, 40 people were supposed to fight. How did he know they'd be put in the same pair? He has the same last name as the examiner. They seem to have an unusual relationship. The young man thought that in the face of ordinary power, all cunning loses its meaning. Lin Ke took off his equipment. Zhao Chang'an said that he would show what happens when people stick their noses into things. Lin Ke said that a scoundrel like him didn't stand a chance. Zhao Chang'an made a dash towards his opponent and shouted, "Die!" Lin Ke put his hand forward and their fists met. A good punch occurred. Zhao Chang'an was very surprised. How could this young man's punch be stronger than his punch? Lin Ke told him not to complain. The show is just beginning. The young man adopted a fighting stance, swung around, and decided to use a technique, the mountain-shattering kick. The opponent decided to use the tiger kick. The two young men came close to within striking distance again. Lin Ke was once again able to resist his opponent's strike and moreover throw him backwards. Zhao Cheng'an was already definitely nervous. How could this be possible? After all, he is a strong candidate, and he can't handle this opponent. Lin Ke pounced on Zhao Cheng'an and forced his opponent to retreat with a strong kick to the body. Zhao Cheng'an lost his balance, backpedaling. It was difficult for him to stay on his feet. Zhao Cheng'an backed up and ran to the edge of the arena and fell to the floor there. Lin Ke took his time to approach his opponent. The young man was very angry. Apparently, his opponent in the previous test didn't show all his strength. Lin Ke said that with the strength that his opponent possesses, not even a D7 level zombie would be able to handle it. The fact that he became the captain of the Knights is just a humiliation to the honor of the Knights. Zhao Cheng'an shouted for his opponent to shut up. Lin Ke dodged his opponent's punch without much difficulty. The opponent's movements slowed down for him. This showed that Lin Ke's reaction time had become much better. The guy knew that physical strength could strengthen the body, and the power of the mind could give a fighter a reading of movements that were imperceptible to ordinary people. To Lin Ke, his opponent's movements were like a slow-motion movie. Our hero counterattacked his opponent, so hard that he flew far to the edge of the arena. Everyone has his faults, the young man thought. Lin Ke walked over to his opponent and asked if he could stand up on his own and walked over to Zhao Cheng'an himself. The examiner turned around and shouted that the cheater was Lin Ke. The young man couldn't believe his ears. How could this be? The examiner said that Lin Ke used a poisoned needle to win, and he will disqualify him from this stage. Zhao Cheng'an said that this is the case. The ring with the needle is lying beside the young man. Lin Ke saw that the ring was indeed beside him. Why was it here? The examiner cried out that the young man, a cheat, and he's suspended. The kid figured it out. These two are in cahoots. You don't have to go to a fortune teller. Everyone started to condemn Lin Ke. How could he do such a thing? Does he really think the examiner is stupid? However, this Zhao Cheng'an is too weak for a knight captain. The examiner is sure the needle is poisoned. It all makes sense. The young man remembered one thing. He took out his smartphone. The guy showed everyone present a photo he took when his opponent was getting out of the car with the girl. He had the same ring on his hand. All the candidates saw it that way. It turns out that Lin Ke was framed. The examiner realized that he had blundered. Zhao Cheng'an shouted, "How could this have happened?" The examiner began to twist around and said he was taking it back. The young man passed the test. The third test was 2 hours away. The examiner was leaving the room. There was anger and annoyance on his face. Lin Ke pointed out that this examiner is very strong, and his level is at least C4. Zhao Cheng'an stated to the young man that this was not the end. The boy expected nothing less from this scoundrel. Lin Ke thought that as a precautionary measure, let it stay like this. Then, after the third trial, the young man would settle his score with the bastard. The young man went to prepare for the third test. Zhao Cheng'an told the examiner that he had to take revenge, and called him brother. The man said he had an idea, and let his brother rely on him. The young man went outside the doomsday camp. He decided to find a cafe to pass the time. The young man found an establishment, went in, and ordered a coffee. So some time passed. The young man got ready to leave. The receptionist said they were waiting for him again. The young man approached the camp. It seemed strange to him. It's almost 2 in the afternoon, and there's no bidders. Something's not right. The young man approached the guard and asked why no one was here. The guard said that the location of the test had been changed. It was now at the southwest wall. The guy was very surprised why this was happening. The young man shouted why no one had warned him. The guard said that everyone should have received an SMS on their phone. The guy checked his smartphone. There were no SMS messages. The young man began to suspect that it was the examiner's pranks. The young man rushed out. There were only 16 minutes left. Southwest wall. The candidates are already here. The examiner announced that there are 10 people taking the third test. 2 have not shown up yet. The examiner shouted, 2 minutes left. Anyone who arrives late will be considered disqualified. Everyone was asking why this Zhao Cheng'an was standing next to the examiner. Maybe they know something. The brothers were whispering. Looks like their plan worked. The young man is late. The examiner said his brother would take the latecomer's place, but let him keep a low profile for now. Zhao Cheng'an decided that this kid would get it after the exam. Lin Ke appeared at the last second. He had made it in time after all. Zhao Cheng'an's eyes bulged. How could this be possible? The guy's thoughtful that he still has his boots, obtained by the system. He runs a lot faster in them. These boots increase his speed by 50%. The brothers were upset. The examiner unfortunately said that this young man had come after all. Zhao Cheng'an decided that now was the time to take revenge. One person was still late. He was disqualified. Zhao Cheng'an took his place. The examiner said that the third test involves candidates going out of town and killing time zombies. They don't have to use enhanced gear, only what the exam suggests. All must turn in their weapons for safekeeping. If anyone is spotted with a weapon during the test, they will be in trouble. All candidates have placed their weapons in this cabinet. The guy understood that this was standard equipment. They all got simple boots, a simple dagger, and no protective gloves. All 10 candidates advanced to an abandoned part of town. There was absolute silence. This was the Jinhui district. This was where the temporary zombies were to be found. The examiner announced that there are a lot of time zombies in the area. Each of them has a different number. The examiner continued, after the zombie is destroyed, it must be scanned with his scanner to save information about it. Each scanner gives you an extra point. The higher the point, the better your chances of passing the exam. The examiner added that the exam would last 1 hour. Only the best will pass the exam. It starts in 10 minutes. Lin Qi realized that he had expended a lot of energy. He needed to recover. The strength of the mind is restored by thinking, and physical strength by breathing. The 2 candidates promised Zhao Cheng'an to take care of this young man. He's just an ordinary D8. What kind of problem could there be with him? Zhao Cheng'an told these young men where the reinforced weapons were stored as payment for their work. Zhao Cheng'an said that when this young man decided to go against him, he had caused himself a lot of trouble. The examiner announced that the exam was starting. Time is running out. The young men ran into the area and dispersed, looking for zombies. It was every man for himself. We had to find zombies. The more the better. Apparently the zombies were hiding. They must have realized they were being hunted. The candidate ran into building number 9. There was one zombie. It was barely moving, screaming, but it was moving toward the young man. The guy realized it only took one right punch. The zombie had a barcode on its forehead. It grinned and tried to attack the young man. The young man deftly dodged the zombie's attack and stabbed it through with his dagger. The time crystal popped out. The guy thought that even though it was the exam, time crystals were still very valuable. So he took the crystal. The zombie was left lying defeated on the ground. After the scan, the youngster was added 3 points. The leader already had 5 points. The guy hoped that with his strength, he would easily enter the top 10 and pass this test. The young man realized he had no weapons right now. And he must be on his guard, because these Zhao brothers want to mess with him. The young man turned to his system and told it to open up to the store for him. The guy had acquired a meteoric rise. It cost him 500 days. This improvement gave the young man the ability to launch himself from his seat very quickly when some danger appeared, and also stop quickly. The guy realized that this enhancement gave him the ability to run twice as fast. Too bad this speed boost only lasts for 1 second, and it can only be used at 1-minute intervals. The young man decided to go upstairs and view the situation from there. Along the way, the young man came across a zombie. He defeated it easily. Then another zombie. He took the crystals for himself. While he was climbing up on the roof, he earned 5 points by killing 2 zombies. But the young man was still in 3rd place. Realized that Zhao Cheng'an would never play fair. This is a very dubious type. The young man felt someone running toward him from behind. At the last moment, the guy managed to dodge. It was one of the candidates. This attack had nothing to do with zombies. The young man dodged and nudged the attacker with his foot. Stryker did a somersault and landed on his feet. Lin Kei pulled out his knife, asking who he was and why he was attacking him. Just then, another young man appeared. He turned to his companion and said that his brother hadn't used the reinforcement on the first attack. It was a waste. The first one looked back and said that Lin Qi just happened to be very fast. Lin Qi shouted out why they had decided to attack him. One of the brothers said he crossed someone. The young man immediately realized that this was the work of Zhao Cheng'an. The guy knew that twin brothers could only be with the same last name. Among all the candidates, only 2 had the same last name. So it's Liu Wen and Liu Wu. And the person who sent them is obviously Zhao Cheng'an. The brothers said, so what if he guessed? They're outside the city now and not subject to existing laws. The brothers said that Zhao Cheng'an wanted the young man's leg. But they received a very large amount of money, so they will bring his life. The guy said the brothers are right. They're out of town now. If he kills them, there's nothing in it for him. The brothers chuckled. Apparently the young man was not assessing the situation correctly. Lin Qi said it's the opposite. It is the young people who don't understand what is happening now. The brothers decided it was time to stop talking and get down to business. It's time to teach this upstart a lesson. The young man decided he had to use stealth to defeat 2 opponents. Lin Kei shouted for his attacker to be careful. Zhao Cheng'an standing behind him. The guy instinctively turned around. The other shouted to his brother to be more careful, but it was too late. The moment one of the brothers was distracted, Lin Kei made a dash, and in the same instant, he was beside his opponent. Lin Ke pushed his opponent away with great force. The attacker marveled at the speed. Blood spurted from his mouth. The other brother ran up and swung his sword. He shouted, "Get the bastard!" Lin Ke managed to bounce to the side. His opponent's sword pierced through the roof of the building. The brother asked if everything was okay. He said he was fine. The sword-wielding brother rushed towards Lin Ke with a shout of "Die!" The young man thought that this sword was very strong. But on the other hand, the guy thought, as long as the weapon doesn't hurt anyone, it doesn't matter how strong it is. It's just a piece of jewelry. The young men began to battle. Lin Ke deftly evaded the opponent's attack. The fight became more and more exciting. The young man had no trouble dodging and leaving no chance for his opponent to do damage. The young man thought that these brothers had never gone outside the city, never fought temporary zombies. Their attacks had many gaps. Lin Ke executed a mountain-shattering kick. Lin Ke slashed his opponent's throat with his dagger. None of the attackers could have imagined that this would happen. One of the brothers collapsed. The other one was shocked by what had happened. He did not know how to behave. Even with their combined efforts, this Lin Ke was invincible. The young man did the same thing to the second brother. Our hero calmly hid the dagger in its scabbard. He said, not expecting such resistance from his brothers. These were not the first villains that Lin Ke had destroyed. The young man took the opponent's sword. It was very good, expensive, I suppose. But if they saw it, they would think him a fraud. The boy thought there might be a big conspiracy against him here. He'd have to be careful. The young man carefully hid the sword. He decided that after the trial, he would take it back. It's been half an hour. Our hero was in third place. The guy purposely didn't scan all the codes right now. If to calculate his all scores, he would exceed the first place by 36 points. The young man decided not to stand out just yet. It was unclear what to expect from this Zhao Cheng'an. The guy decided that the points he had would be enough to keep him in the top 10. The young man had about 1,000 days before the exam. In this exam, he had collected a lot of time crystals thanks to the monsters. Even if he failed this test, it was still a good result. He now had almost 5,000 days. Some of the crystals the young man had kept intact, and didn't transfer them in time. The guy started the system. The time he had would be enough time for him to go to D9. The young man told the system to start the store, decided to buy some genetic potions. The young man looked at his expenses and felt a little dejected. He knew how to spend money. The guy decided to acquire the element of lightning. After that, he decided to climb onto the roof and use this ability. To test it, the young man climbed onto the roof and looked to see that there was no one around. The guy activated the Thundersnake mode. It was incredible. He'd never seen lightning like that before, especially not in the neighborhood. He was amazed. Lin Ke decided that this was quite powerful. With this kind of trick, he became an order of magnitude more powerful. The young man decided not to show it to anyone for now. It would be his secret weapon. Lin Ke walked down the steps to get to the street. So the young man walked out of the building. He saw Zhao Cheng'an, who said that the world was really small. Zhao Cheng'an decided that those two couldn't overpower him. With this, Lin Ke's ranking only increased. Zhao Cheng'an held his long sword in his hand and said that he was frustrated by his opponent's overly lively appearance. Lin Ke said that his opponent is cheating even in such a trial. Zhao Cheng'an said that Lin Ke will not leave this trial today. Our hero said these are the words of a pitiful and defeated man. Zhao Cheng'an stated that he only wanted to deprive the young man of his leg, but he was asking for his own death. Lin Ke said, since there was no one around, it could be quickly resolved. Zhao Cheng'an decided to attack his opponent and swung his sword and shouted for him to die. Lin Ke was ready for his opponent's attack. He calmly dodged his punch. Our hero, without taking his dagger out of its sheath, made a powerful blow to his opponent's chest with his fist. Zhao Cheng'an stopped and coughed. The punch was really strong. Lin Ke said that for the likes of his opponent, ordinary fists would suffice. Zhao Cheng'an went on the attack again with even less fury and shouted for his opponent to shut up. Young met his opponent's jaw very well with a punch to the jaw. It was a very good punch and accurate. Zhao Cheng'an thought that his nose might be broken. Zhao Cheng'an shouted out that he was in a lot of pain. He was still hurt, that he couldn't do anything against his opponent who didn't have a cold weapon in his hands. Lin Ke said that his opponent is a mama's boy, who lives on his parents' money and cheats defenseless people. Zhao Cheng'an once again shouted that he would kill his opponent, and depicted with his sword a swift, shining cut. Our hero decided that his opponent's actions were very persistent. Lin Ke activated Soul Destruction. It was a very strong strike. His opponent shrank back in fright. Zhao Cheng'an couldn't understand how his opponent could stop the improved weapon's attack. Zhao Cheng'an asked his opponent, is he really at the D9 level? Lin Ke asked why that surprised him. Zhao Cheng'an shouted that according to his data, the young man could not be at the D9 level. Lin Ke said there are a lot of things he doesn't know. In fact, he only gives him 5 seconds, at the end of which, he will send his rival on a long journey. Zhao Cheng'an said that Lin Ke can't destroy him. He is the son of powerful and rich people. His brother is now an examiner. Lin Ke asked calmly, so what? Zhao Cheng'an was now scared out of his wits. The opponent really wants to destroy him. And then 2 candidates showed up for good luck. They were looking for temporary zombies. The guy called for help, said they were trying to kill him. The young man realized that the extra eyes were only complicating things. He didn't need witnesses. He thought that he could solve everything with Zhao Chang'an using the time crystals. But with the witnesses, this plan could be postponed. Zhao Chang'an said that there was nothing his opponent could do now. Otherwise, he wouldn't be in trouble. Lin Qi said that this could not be a problem, and rushed towards his opponent. Zhao Chang'an shouted, "Just try to hurt me." But the young man was hard to stop. Zhao Chang'an realized that this guy was smart, and he wouldn't kill him. Lin Qi stepped on and shouted, "Where was the character of this insolent man now? And why did he get scared and backtrack? Our hero thought his opponent was lucky now, but he won't go unpunished all the time." Lin Ke firmly grabbed his opponent's hand, clutching his sword. The boy squeezed that hand as hard as he could, and his opponent released his sword. The young man swung his dagger.
Lin Ke hit the score counter hard and shattered the screen to pieces.
Then the guy just ripped the whole thing off his opponent's arm. Zhao Chang'an was really frustrated as to why he did this. Lin Qi said, this way, he wouldn't be able to earn points when he destroyed someone. Our hero said that his opponent is now on the 10th place, but will soon be on the 11th. And we have to wait for him to get out of this tournament. After a while, Lin Qi said, well, here he is already in 11th place. There was no hope left. Zhao Chang'an had lost this competition. Zhao Chang'an once again began to threaten to kill the young man. Lin Qi, I thought to myself, this man will definitely regret getting involved with him. Our hero realized that his enemy would definitely be watching him, so the weapon would have to be taken away after some time. The examiner announced that time was up. At the end of the test, the top 10 in terms of scores would pass the third stage. He ordered everyone to return to the assembly point. The examiner told his brother that he couldn't even beat the losers who were assigned specifically to make sure he passed. Big brother said you can't cheat the rating, so he would have to wait for the next time. Zhao Chang'an once again decided to destroy his opponent. The examiner said maybe he wouldn't have to get his hands dirty. Another 30 minutes passed. Doomsday Camp. In front of each of the candidates who passed the tests lay on the table an agreement to enroll in a military doomsday camp. The examiner said everyone should read this agreement and decide whether or not to sign it. It said that after signing the agreement, the cadets get a bonus of 500 days. Also, they get the right to permanent residence in the outer zone, a monthly guaranteed salary of 150 days, and that's for the internship period. After that, it's double salary. Lin Ke thought that the conditions now were much better than before, and this was only the first batch of recruits. The examiner said if anyone refuses to sign, they can leave. Lin Qi said to watch out for this guy. It's unclear what he's up to. The young man knew that this camp had been set up by the owner of the city himself. One would have to undergo special training. One must always try. The most important thing is that his sister can get good treatment. He just can't help but sign. The young man signed the agreement. The examiner thought the guy was dead. The examiner took the young men to the dormitory. The man said to have everyone meet in the training room on the top floor at 8 No enhanced weapons. The young man thought it would be a normal training session. But it probably wasn't that simple. A guy in the dorm went into a room. I think he got this one. Xu Wei called and asked how the young man was doing on the exam. The young man said he was doing well. Everything's going according to plan. The examiner was watching every young man in that dormitory, including our hero. He heard the young man say on the phone that he would not be able to come and visit his sister today. The examiner said on the phone he needed to track someone down. The man said that Lin Qi has a sister who is in a coma and lying in the hospital after a serious accident 6 months ago. And there's something to be done. Our hero walked into the gym. Some cadets were already warming up. The young man looked around the room and realized that everyone was already here. At that time, the door at the end of the room opened and someone entered. Everyone looked in that direction. It was the examiner and the chief instructor of the training camp. The instructor ordered everyone to assemble. The candidates started to ask each other who he was. It's the personal bodyguard, Master C9. Now he's also the head of the Knights. Lin Qi thought, seriously, C9, that's a very high rank. The young men all lined up in front of the head instructor of the training camp. Zhang Shong congratulated everyone who joined the Doomsday Camp as participants in the Phoenix program. The man said that he was the chief instructor of the future training camp. The man said that the Phoenix project is now the focus of the Lord of the City. As the name suggests, this project was started to revive from the ashes. The instructor said, even though they signed the agreement, it doesn't mean there is no going back. Young people can cancel the agreement at any time and give up any benefits at any time. The man said that their primary instructor would be their examiner, and he would be responsible for the training as a whole. The senior instructor said that this man is in charge of 10 cadets, and he wants them to reach sea level in a few months. That was the end of the chief instructor's mission today. He went out the same door he came in. The instructor said he didn't have much time, so he's going to get right to the point. Today, he's going to teach D-level technique. It's a boxing technique. We need to learn it well. The instructor pointed his finger at Lin Ke and told him to get up. The young man got up. The young man thought that this doomsday training camp was not a place where their Zhao family could do anything. The young man decided to observe. He was determined to see what this instructor was up to. Lin Ke asked if the instructor wanted to avenge his brother. The instructor replied that although his brother was useless, he was a family member. The young man should not mess with the Zhao family. The guy asked what he wanted. The instructor replied that the young man had better not provoke him. Otherwise, he would learn the full power of the Zhao family. The instructor addressed everyone present. The D-level technique is called the tiger style, and everyone should now look at it very carefully. In the next second, the instructor struck the young man hard and fast. It was very unexpected. Lin Ke managed to dodge at the last moment, and a hand passed near his face. The instructor was amazed. How this guy could dodge. That's never happened before. With the next blow, the same thing happened. The instructor swung, the young man ducked. The instructor decided to use a D-level technique. A gust of wind. He decided to see how the guy would handle it. Once again, the young man jumped aside, did a somersault and landed neatly on his feet. The boy thought that the instructor was using improved skills. Everyone thought the guy was showing a leg-strengthening technique. Where's the boxing? Someone remarked that one should be careful not to provoke the instructor. The instructor noted that this young man has pretty good skills. The man said that the young man was free to go. The boy thought that when there are many people watching them, it is not easy to fight vigorously. You have to be careful. An hour had passed. In the gym, the workout continued. The cadets are talking among themselves. The tiger style is much better than the wind fist style. If one were to buy this technique, it would cost somewhere around 500 days. This camp has a very good reputation. They train at rank D, that's for sure. After a while, the instructor said they meet at 8 o'clock. Now we can split up. The man said that Lin Ke would go along with him. The young man wondered why. The instructor showed the young man the smartphone screen. What was there stunned Lin Ke? He saw that Shu Wei was bound hand and foot, and there was some unfamiliar person sitting next to him with a dagger in his hand. The girl was terrified. The stranger was smirking. It was in the ward where Lin Ke's sister was lying. The guy shouted angrily that he shouldn't dare touch his sister or he would regret it very much. The instructor said if the young man didn't want his sister to have an accident, he should just obey him. That was the end of the conversation. The guy decided that he had to save his sister by all means. Training camp area. The instructor and Lin Ke are moving in the elevator. The men have nothing to talk about. They are silent. The instructor stepped out of the elevator and commanded the young man to follow him. The young man pointed out that there was no cell phone service here at all. If this man decides to do something to him, he can get away with it. The guy thought he should protect himself if he had to. He's level D9, and he can use the lightning ability. The boy realized that his sister was in his hands, so for the time being, one must obey him. If he had something in mind, his power should be enough. The young man was very careful. Something caught his attention. There was some movement. The guy stopped and looked behind the bars. Where all this came from. Why are there so many animals in this room? And what they're doing here? The boy remembered that his sister was very fond of small animals. She always wanted to raise some kind of animal. But because of the time explosion, the planet's ecology was disrupted, and the animals were almost completely extinct. Now, they were all exotic. Now people can't afford to raise pets. It's very expensive. A kitten like this would cost 100 days. The guy made a promise to himself when his sister wakes up, he will definitely buy her a pet. The young man saw an aquarium. There must be more fish in here. It's like a zoo. And so a huge fish appeared. The young man was not mistaken. The guy thought, although their town is on the seashore, but the temporary storm had killed all the aquatic life. Fish like that are very rare. The instructor hurried the young man along. He said, "Stop staring around." The guy thought maybe they were doing some kind of experiment. The men came to a door of some sort. The instructor said he had brought Professor Huan a new assistant. From the other side of the door they heard, "Come in." The door opened and the young man saw the laboratory. At the sound of the door opening, some man looked back. It was Professor Huang. The professor said he's a very tough young man, and he hopes he can hold out a little longer. The instructor said the young man was here to help Professor Huan complete the experiment. The guy asked again what kind of experiment. It all looked very suspicious, and he hadn't given any consent to the experiment. The instructor was reassured, says it's just a little experience. There's no need to worry. As long as the young man helps the professor, his grudges with the Zhao family mean nothing. The instructor added that his sister would also be fine, but if he refused, there would be certain consequences. The professor said he needed to check on the young man's condition and suggested he lie down. The boy wasn't sure if he needed all this, but his sister was a prisoner. He didn't have to choose. The instructor took the smartphone and said he was counting to 3. The boy realized that he had no choice. Exactly. The boy thought his mental power was pumped up enough. If they tie him up, at the critical moment he could get free. He's ready to see what they want. A few minutes later, the young man found himself tied to this bed. His hands and feet were shackled. The professor said not to worry. These chains are made of iron rhino hide. Even a C-ranked fighter can't break them. The guy thought if it was an iron rhinoceros. It wasn't just humans that changed after the time explosion. Animals on land and in the water began to mutate. They all had different abilities. Animals became more like monsters, and the iron rhinoceros was one of those monsters. The professor said the young man might not be frightened, and now he would introduce him to his former assistant. The professor showed the young man a corpse that had many scars on it. The young man shouted to the instructor, "This is a doomsday camp. Why do these things happen here?" The instructor said it was his family's lab. Whoever walks through the elevator door never comes back out again. The guy thought that it was the Zhao family who were just scum. The instructor's brother came into the room. He said that the young man had gone against him, and it had ended badly for him. Lin Ke shouted in desperation as to what they were going to do. Zhao Cheng'an bowed low over the young man and said that he might as well not worry. He would not die quickly. Zhao Cheng'an said, first he wanted to check how the young man's body conducts electricity, and laughed. The boy thought he had awakened the ability of lightning. He's not afraid of electricity now. Anyway, he should pretend to be in pain, so as not to arouse suspicion. Zhao Cheng'an told the professor to set it to maximum. The voltage was maxed out. 15 minutes had passed. Zhao Cheng'an was amazed. "You told a guy he didn't die from the current even at 1000 volts. The boy lay with his eyes closed and did not move. He was skillfully faking it. The instructor thought that this guy was truly amazing. Even a sea-level fighter wouldn't last 5 minutes. Zhao Cheng'an said that in that case, they would play for longer. If he died faster, it would be boring. The brothers said that Professor Huan could do whatever he wanted. They'll bother him later. The professor said he would take care of everything. When the Zhao brothers left, the professor said that the young man had a phenomenal resistance to electricity, and he would be able to conduct the most dangerous experiments. The professor drew some green liquid into a syringe. He was going to inject it. The young man asked what the professor was going to do. The professor was surprised that the young man was awake. He thought he would faint all day. The professor said he couldn't wait any longer. If the vaccine is injected into the body, the consequences will be unpredictable. The professor said it was a thunder and lightning potion made perfectly. The young man was able to unlock the handcuffs. The boy thought, thunder and lightning potion. If he awakened the power of lightning, he had nothing to fear. It might even help him. The professor gave the young man an injection and injected all the fluid into his body. The professor shouted, if the experiment was successful, he would become famous and save the world. The young man noticed that it hurt a little bit, and he feels the power rushing to his mind, and his body doesn't seem to reject it. The young man could feel his mental strength improving. The guy thought that this strange potion had improved his mental power. It also improved his lightning control skills. The young man knew that those with special abilities actually control them with their minds. An able-bodied person changes the air around him with his mind, transforming it into an element. The guy realized that the stronger the power of the mind, the stronger the lightning. This thunder and lightning potion was far superior to all the usual mind medicines. If anyone can hold out, they will have unprecedented strength. After a while, the professor asked how the young man was feeling. The professor asked if the guy felt any changes. Although Professor Huang is talented, he teamed up with the Zhao family to kidnap and experiment on people, and that's unforgivable. The young man said nothing has changed. The professor replied, understandably so, because he only gave a concentration of 20%. The boy noted to himself that a concentration of 20% gave him a mental power boost, a bit more than a normal mind potion. The professor decided that the young man's body was very resistant to the thunder potion. The professor said he wanted to see the effect of a 40% concentration. The doctor gave another injection. The boy noted that it was much more painful. The professor said that this time the 40% concentration took only 38 days. That's incredible. The professor thought. There were 6 test subjects in total. Several died as early as stage 4, but this one lived to stage 5. That's incredible. The doctor showed the young man the information on the research results. He really is a great helper. The guy thought, this means the 6th subject is on C and didn't make it past stage 5. It's an unnatural death. The professor decided to try 60%. The boy asked him to stop. Lin Kai stated that he didn't have enough time. He wouldn't survive with this dose. He originally had plenty of time, but he used up all of it with his punches. Zhao Qinan. The professor told the young man not to worry. He is rich enough to keep this young man from dying. The professor took the young man by the hand and gave him 8,000 days. So the professor had big plans for these experiments. The boy was surprised at the amount he received. The professor continued to inject the medicine into the young man's body. The professor looked at the results. This time it only cost the young man 43 days. It was getting less and less each time. He decided to try the 4th and 5th stage potion once more. The professor continued to experiment on the young man. He kept increasing the dose. The young man's body endured all the tests. The doctor said the guy just went through stage 5. How did he feel? The young man said that nothing had changed. The professor became nervous. It's impossible. How is it no change? There must be some effect. Linka thought that thanks to this professor, his mind power had increased from D2 to D5. The professor wouldn't stop. He thought it was necessary to increase the concentration. There was no stopping this doctor. The doctor said he'd be right back with a new batch, and not to let the young man go anywhere. That was sarcasm. The doctor left the room, slamming the door behind him. The boy might have tried to do something about it. The young man tensed his arms and broke the bracelet, holding him to the bed. The young man thought if the Zhao family found out that he had gotten such a significant improvement through their experiment, they would really dislike it. The young man got out of bed. When the time came, he must take the proof of their crime with him. For now, he had to think about how to get out of here. The boy thought that self-improvement was too slow. He should rely on the potion and then think of how to save his sister. The 5th step potion already has 100% concentration. If Professor Huang has a more powerful potion. The boy got up from the bed. He felt very dizzy. It must be because of the sudden surge of mind power. I need to meditate to improve the condition. The young man laid down on the bed, made sure it wasn't obvious that he could get up. He meditated. There was absolute silence in the room. The next day came. The cadets continued their training in the camp. Dr. Huan peeked into the room. He said hello. The professor went straight to the young man to see how he was feeling. The doctor wanted to show off. He opened the suitcase he'd brought with him. The professor said he used all the precious ingredients in the whole lab. All the potions made are in here. So this time, he would succeed. The guy thought it would be enough to reach D6 level. The professor continued the experiment. 10 vials of the potion had no effect, and each vial took less and less time. The last vial took the young men only 3 days. There was no change. The young man asked if Professor Huan didn't have the last 3 vials left. The professor turned his attention to his briefcase and counted how many vials were left in it. Finally, the doctor decided to try these vials as well. The concentration in them was twice as high. The young man tensed up. Doubled concentration. This was already dangerous. But he had no choice. The young man gritted his teeth in pain, but figured it was still within his tolerance. The professor was excited. It's incredible. The young man survived even after double concentration. What a monster he is. The boy, enduring the pain, told the professor that there were 2 more vials left. And we have to go all the way. Dr. Huang looked at the remaining vials. One of these vials had 3 times the concentration. Would the young man be able to take it? The other vial has 5 times the concentration. That's over the limit. Lin Ke said that the 3rd vial should be used. The professor replied that he really liked the young man's zeal. The guy decided that, judging by past effects, this dose shouldn't be fatal to him. The young man knew that when he was done absorbing such a large injection, he would also absorb the very last one. The guy screamed in pain. It wasn't maximum power, but it hurt a lot. The young man noticed that his attentiveness was increasing. This was worth enduring for the sake of it. The young man's body was very sore, but his mind was as clear as ever. The boy spotted an ant far away in the corner. Now, with his attentiveness, the young man has access to even that. The professor asked if the triple dose of the vaccine had produced any results. The young man replied that there was still no change. The doctor said, then we should use a 5-fold injection. That's the peak of his ability. If the desired effect is not achieved even after that, we will have to stop the experiment. Lin Ke thought that this vial contained a 5-fold concentration of potion. That should be enough to raise his mind power to level D9. That's the pinnacle of what he could do right now. The guy decided that after this, he would uncuff himself and kill everyone here. Suddenly a door opened into the room. The professor thought it was a young gentleman entering. The young man asked what the professor was doing now, whether he was making any progress. Dr. Huang said he had injected the young man with all the injections he had available, up to the triple injection. The last bottle with the 5-fold injection was left. Zhao Cheng'an was surprised that the subject was still alive. Zhao Cheng'an told the young man that he was indeed tenacious, but he wanted to electrocute the young man a few more times. In any case, if he saw the young man in pain, then his day was good. Lin Ke called that one a rascal. Zhao Cheng'an became angry. This guinea pig was not in a state to swear. He added that life was not cheap for a young man at all. Then so be it. The guy said the professor gave this rabbit one last shot. The professor agreed. The young man screamed in intense pain. It was the most painful injection. Lin Ke thought that he must not repel this force, or else he would simply die. If he didn't take this chance, he might not reach D9 anymore. Zhao Cheng'an suggested that the young man play another game. If he has a hard life, the kid will help. The professor asked him not to do that. Zhao Cheng'an connected a large charge of electricity to the young man. The boy was in unbearable pain, but he felt like he was getting stronger. The young man clenched his fists as hard as he could. The handcuffs crunched and shattered as if they were glass. Laying K jumped up from the bed, swung around, and shouted for Zhao Chang'an to die. The blow came straight to his jaw. Zhao Chang'an flew far back. His mouth was bleeding. His nose was most likely injured again. Zhao Chang'an saw that the guinea pig was completely free from the handcuffs. It was standing in front of him unharmed. The professor said happily. It had finally worked. In spite of everything, he was satisfied with the result of his experiment. Lin Ke said that the professor was doing all this for the Zhao family. Therefore, he should get what he deserved too. The guy delivered a crushing blow to the sadistic professor. The professor, falling to his knees and spitting blood, muttered that he had succeeded. He could do it. The young man thought it was a secret laboratory with no guards. No one should see him or notice his new abilities. The young man took a flash drive out of his computer that had all the information and evidence of the crimes in progress. The guy realized that there was data on this carrier that could prove the professor and the Zhao family guilty. The young man ran out of this room and decided that it was now urgent to rescue his sister. 9th Hospital of the Extreme Region. The man suggests Xu Wei eat an apple and not to be afraid of him. The girl says she doesn't want to communicate with him. He's a kidnapper. The man denies no one kidnapped her. He was only ordered to protect the girls. The girl realized they'd taken her phone. She has to tell the Knights what's going on here. This is a real kidnapping. There were 2 people in the ward. They're D8 level fighters. The girl is no match for them. There was a call on the girl's smartphone. A man said that some guy was calling her. The girl asked if she could answer it. If they thought it was some guy, maybe they don't know about Lin Ke. The man said it was okay to answer, but he would hold the smartphone. From there, she was heard to cover for her sister. He's on his way. Xu Wei was puzzled. How could she cover for her sister if she was tied up hand and foot? So there was going to be a mess. In the next instant, the door swung open. Lin Ke appeared on the threshold. He appeared out of the blue. He took everyone by surprise. One of the kidnappers asked who he was. Apparently that was the last thing he had time to ask in his life. The young man ran up to him at the same moment. The young man swung a powerful blow to the jaw. The opponent didn't even have time to realize it. There were half as many kidnappers. Another man asked who you were? Lin Ke? The girl called him by his name. She was glad that the young man had returned. The kidnapper with a knife in his hand lunged at the young man and shouted for him to die. The young man counterattacked the attacker very hard. He froze for a moment, his mouth bleeding. In the next second, the kidnapper was already lying on the floor. He had no chance of escape. The young man broke the ropes binding Xu Wei. He immediately picked up his sister. We had to get out of here right away. The young men rushed out of the room. They had no time to think. Doomsday Camp. The instructor lined up all the cadets in the gym and told them that today's practice would show how they had learned their new skills. The instructor heard his smartphone ring. The instructor was told that Lin Ke had escaped and killed everyone in the lab. It was his brother. And he said that both of his subordinates were wounded. Instructor Zhao became nervous. Things didn't go according to plan. Something urgent must be done. The man went down to the underground laboratory. He wanted to see for himself. The instructor saw his brother standing with his back to him and making some strange noises. It was suspicious. The instructor walked up to his brother, put his hand on his shoulder, and asked him what really happened. He wanted to hear the whole story. The instructor tensed. His brother was making suspicious noises. It wasn't good. The young man turned around and the instructor stunned. His brother had turned into a temporary zombie. It was scary. The instructor called his brother by name, Zhao Chang'an. The next instant, the zombie that used to be the professor lunged at the instructor. The instructor threw the professor far away from himself. The blow was so powerful that a time crystal flew out of the professor. The next blow came at the zombie that used to be his brother. Instructor Zhao threw his brother back. His hand did not rise to destroy this zombie. The instructor ran out of the room, leaving the zombie alone in the room. The man was trying to leave this floor to get out of the lab faster. The instructor was standing in the elevator. The doors were about to close. The zombie named Shannan was moving toward him. The doors closed in time. The zombie stayed in the lab. The instructor was alone in the elevator. He thought that no one should find out about it. The young men came to an abandoned building. There were no people in it. Lin Ke decided to stay here. Xu Wei said that the Zhao brothers could go unpunished. The guy said the girl could take it easy. Now she should hurry up. The young man and his sister jumped on the fence. Xu Wei also crossed the fence. The young people had no time to waste. They had to hide quickly. The young men were approaching the building. There was not much left to do. Inside the building, they walked the corridors and looked for a suitable room. Such a room was found. The young man put his sister to bed. He said that even though this was the outermost area, there shouldn't be any zombies here. Xu Wei asked what she should do next. The guy said he revealed the Zhao family's secrets. They should be looking for him now. If he reveals these secrets, the Zhao family's power won't help them. Lin Ke said that he would first find something for the girl and sister, and then deal with Zhao's family. Xu Wei told him to hurry back. The boy said, without fail. The young man thought that there was no one to trust right now. Except this girl. The kid told the system to run the store. The young man noticed that it had added new abilities and improved everything it could. Fighters below sea level would not be able to do anything to him. The young man thought that he couldn't go to the hospital right now, only to see Uncle Zhang. The young man came to the room where the old doctor was receiving. He had been treated here as a child. A young man walked into a doctor's office. He had a patient, and the man was giving her recommendations. When the patient left, the doctor asked what he could do to help the young man. The guy said it was Lin K and took off his mask so Uncle Zhang would recognize him. The doctor greeted the young man and said he hadn't seen him in a long time. The men exchanged pleasantries. The doctor assumed that the young man was having a hard time. Otherwise, he would not have come to the doctor. The young man said he wanted to buy some glucose. The doctor said if the young man wants to leave town, he'd better not do it now. Rumor has it that there's a large group of zombies roaming around outside. The guy says the glucose is not for him, but for his friend. He does not want to go to the hospital. The doctor answered him that if something happened to the guy, his sister would be worried. The doctor gave the bag of glucose to the young man and told him to take this. The doctor said his clinic was closing soon. The young man thanked him for the medication and said that now it might be worth a whole day. The young man was very surprised when he learned that the doctor's clinic might close. Uncle Zhang said that medicine is expensive nowadays and people can't afford treatment. Young thought all the resources would go to the owners of those hospitals. The guy remembered that Uncle Zhang had helped them a lot before. The young man took Uncle Zhang's hand. The doctor looked at his hand. The young man translated 30 days to him. Uncle Zhang thanked the young man. The boy said that the doctor could come to him at any time for help. The young man heard the door open behind him. The stranger asked if the doctor had seen anyone suspicious here. Lin Qi discreetly put on his mask. The doctor asked what he meant by suspicious. The stranger said someone who buys syringes, glucose, and other things. The young man tried to hide the bag of glucose behind his back. The guy said if the doctor notices anyone suspicious, he should inform him immediately. Otherwise, he would stop supplying the doctor with goods. The doctor said he understood everything. The stranger looked into the young man's bag and asked why he wanted all of this. The young man thought, these are representatives of the Zhao family. He can't frame Uncle Zhang. He has to run away. The boy turned and ran out the open door. The stranger shouted angrily. A man gave someone on the phone information that this guy was just here. We need to grab him. The young man ran outside. Lin Ke thought that this might not end well for Uncle Zhang. 3 young men appeared not far away, looking for our hero. They reasoned that he could not have gone far away. Lin Ke decided that there was nothing he could fix right now, but he would definitely deal with it later. He should hurry up and go to his sister's house. The guy tried to stay out of sight. The mask helped him to be unrecognizable. There were already young people walking down the street showing Lin Ke's picture and asking if anyone had seen this person. The stranger recognized the guy and asked how dare he kill the citizens of their glorious city. It was a far-fetched excuse. Our hero, in the course of a brief melee, knocked his opponent to the ground. The young man decided that now was not the time to quarrel. Now was the time to run. The stranger said that the young man could run, but would not run far. The boy stopped for a breather. He thought he shouldn't be overtaken. The young man heard someone shouting at him. They found him after all, Lin Ke thought. There were 3 young men standing behind our hero. They saw that Lin Ke was at the D9 level. One of them said that 3-on-1 was normal. The young man said he wouldn't be so cocky if he were these people. It didn't take the guy very long to explain to the 3 that he wasn't happy with them, and he didn't have time for longer conversations. After dealing with the 3 youths, the young man thought that the Zhao family should leave the city. The boy heard someone at the window discussing that he might be leaving town. The boy wondered why they thought he was leaving. The guy knew that until his sister woke up he couldn't do it. The young man went back to the girls. Xu Wei asked him what he had done that the whole town was now talking about him. Lin Ke said that he knew the secret of the Zhao family. They kill people. The girl was amazed at what she heard. The young man explained that the Zhao family has set up an underground laboratory in the Doomsday Camp and is experimenting on humans there. Many people die there. He almost died there too. The guy added that he killed Zhao Chenggang and Professor Huang in the process of escaping. Now everyone is looking for him. The girl said if that's the case, it's dangerous for the young man to stay in this town. Maybe he wants to move to Minnan? Pare said he couldn't do that. It's too dangerous. Because his sister hasn't woken up yet. However, Zhao's family decided that he was leaving the city. So it's safe here for now. Xu Wei asked what the guy was going to do next. The young man said that the girl had nothing to fear as long as he kept the information. The young man thought that the Zhao family was in the inner realm, and he didn't have enough time to even enter the outer realm. So he has to get some time somewhere. The guy thought it could be that the knights in the Zhao family were in cahoots. The young man began to explore the store to see what else could be purchased there. Level D9 was able to help the young man fight Zhao Jiyun. The guy decided to call Zhao Jiyun. He realized that he wouldn't be able to track down his location. The guy heard on the phone being told he couldn't escape. He has to give back what he took. The young man said that the initiative is now in his hands. If a flash drive is needed, they have to prepare 3,000 days. He needs a temporary card. Instructor Zhao said that the young man should not bargain, and said he would call the young man back in the evening. The girl asked if the young man really wanted to give up all the evidence. The young man said that he was not going to give up the evidence. He must take revenge on the Zhao family. Steelworks. The young man thought that he knew the neighborhood well, and that's why this place is very convenient for him. The guy thought the instructor was at the C3 level, and he's very confident. He expects to take the young man down with the swipe of a finger. 20 minutes later, a car pulled up to the plant. Instructor Zhao stepped out of the car. The guy noticed that his opponent did indeed come alone. At least he's not cheating here. The young man dropped a message on his smartphone telling him where to go next. Zhao walked to the target point. They were already waiting for him there. Without too many questions, the instructor asked the young man where what he needed was. The young man asked the same question. The instructor tossed the young man the time tapes. He caught them. The guy thought that now he would be able to enter not only the outer realm but also the inner realm. He had an extra 3,000 days. The young man said there was one more condition to fulfill. Cancel the hunt for him. Zhao said he couldn't do that. The guy asked how he knew he didn't have a copy of the flash drive. The instructor called someone and told them to call off the search for Ling Ke. After talking, Zhao said that the matter was done, and he gave the order. Young threw his opponent a flash drive. The instructor put up his hand and caught what the young man threw to him. It turned out to be a mini smoke bomb. There was an explosion, and everything in the neighborhood was covered in smoke. Zhao shouted that the young man might not dream that he could get away. The instructor stood and waited for the smoke to clear. At some point, a young man showed up and said he wasn't going to run away. The young man tried to strike his opponent. The instructor said that the young man had no brains at all. He doesn't understand the difference between C3 and D9 levels. Link said that he understood perfectly well, and he gave a crushing kick to Instructor Zhao. Zhao, not realizing what was happening, flew backwards well. The instructor fell on his back, but as he fell, he grouped himself, somersaulted, and quickly got to his feet. The young man said he taught the instructor his first lesson. The instructor threw off his cloak and said that he would show the young man his place now. Zhao Qiun moved towards his opponent like a tiger in a leap. He was ready to tear him apart. The young man thought that it was very difficult for a D9 level fighter to react to such an attack in time. The guy decided that he would act according to plan, and react to his opponent according to the situation. The instructor would throw punches at the young man. The young man blocked them and ducked. The boy continued to stay on his feet. The fight continued. Zhao Qiun couldn't understand what was going on. His opponent didn't seem to be very fast, but how could he guess his attacks? Lin Ke moved very skillfully and walked away from his opponent. He said, "Did the instructor start to doubt himself?" The instructor was starting to get angry. He had underestimated his opponent. The guy thought he knew this abandoned town very well, because he'd been living here for quite a while. The instructor yelled that he was about to destroy it. Zhao Qiun once again lunged at the young man. The boy was ready for this attack. He knew what to counter. Zhao Qiun was unable to defeat his opponent. His nerves were already at their limit. This had never happened to him before. In the next instant, the young man sent his opponent into a knockdown. It was an instructor's fiasco. The guy didn't expect such tricks to work on Zhao Qiun. The instructor came to his senses, rolled over from his stomach to his back, pulled out his gun, and said he was about to destroy the young man. In the next instant, Lin Ke Lightning quickly knocked the pistol out of his opponent's hands with his foot. The guy took the gun in his hands. The young man thought that it was almost night. If a gunshot rang out, there would be a lot of trouble. The young man told his opponent that he had a C3 level, but he had never been out of the city, and he had never dealt with temporary zombies. The young man brought the gun close to the instructor's forehead and said that he had no survival experience. Holding his opponent at gunpoint, the young man said, "Didn't he know that a knife was more effective in close combat?" Zhao Qiun said through his teeth. "Does the young man really want to destroy him?" The guy replied that he deserved to die and should die in payback for the deaths of all the test subjects in their lab. The young man pulled out his blade and told his opponent to go to hell. The blade in Lin Ke's hand. That was the last thing Zhao Qiun saw. He shouted loudly. The young man left the instructor bleeding on the ground. There was a gaping hole near the heart. The young man had taken all the time he had. Now he wouldn't need it. The young man saw the car keys. Lin Ke decided to see what he could find interesting in the instructor's car. There was nothing compromising in the interior of the car at first glance. The trunk was also empty. The young man kept looking. The young man decided to check the navigator. It showed a destination in the outer zone. It must be his home. The young man turned on the display and decided to watch this destination. The guy looked all over the car from the inside. There was nothing of interest to him there. The young man remembered that the car that had hit his sister had a license plate, and it was in the inner zone. Guy looked at the instructor's license plate number. C means outside area, so it's safe to use the car to enter the outer area. Lin Ke didn't find anything in the car. He decided to see what he could find in the instructor's house. The guy drove up to the border between the zones. Although there's no one here now, as soon as the intruder shows up, people will arrive within 3 minutes. The young man stopped near the barrier. There was nothing suspicious about this car. Then, he would be able to drive on. The young man crossed the border and found himself in the outer zone. The way forward was free. Using the navigator, Lin Kei drove up to Zhao's house. The house seemed empty. No one had met him. The young man got out of the car. The guy realized that there might be armed men here. That's why you have to be careful. Meanwhile, in one of the private offices in the inner area, Zhao Chong, head of the Zhao family. The man asked what news there was about Jin. Zhao Jianbai said he has called repeatedly on the phone, but no one answers. The head of the family said he was done with him anyway, and they should count the losses. He asked the young man if he had asked someone to pick him up. The young man said that the second brother had already sent someone to fetch him, and they would be there soon. The man resented how that bastard dared to kill his son. We should tell Jin to cut him into pieces and throw him to the dogs. He told the young man to take care of his third brother, while the man took care of the formalities. Lin Ke walked into Zhao Zhenggang's house. The house was empty. The young man walked to the back of the room. He met no one on the way. The guy pointed out that a great many enhanced weapons cost at least tens of thousands of days. The young man noted that there is even a genetic module. It costs 3,000 days. The young man checked and saw that there was a large supply of genetic potions. The guy decided to put it all to good use. With his D9 level, he's a little short of a C. The young man knew that the genetic capsule not only increased a person's life force, it strengthened the body by tearing the flesh and then rebuilding it. In the case of a D9 to C1 breakthrough, the degree of pain is unimaginable. The average person may even lose consciousness. Lin Ke raised his rank to C1 and received one lucrative lottery from the system. The young man left the capsule. He had improved greatly. If he met the instructor again, he would instantly defeat him with his mental power. A young man decided to see if luck was on his side. He decided to enter the lottery. A young man won an optical raincoat in a lottery. The cloak has a level 1 defense. It can refract light, making the wearer invisible. Lin Ke decided it was an invisibility cloak. Luck was on his side today. The guy tried on this cape. He would really need it. With this cloak, he will be able to run not only from the Zhao family, but also from the temporary zombies. However, this cloak consumes a lot of energy. The young man took off that cloak. He decided to treat it with care, and not to use it unnecessarily. The boy continued to explore the instructor's house. The young man looked into the closet. He was interested in everything that mattered to him. The young man had discovered the time cards. It had meaning for him. The guy decided to move to another room. As he walked by, the young man noticed the photographs on the shelf. He knew 2 of the brothers. He didn't know the third. The young man noticed the license plate number of the car pictured. The young man thought it was the car that had hit his sister. The boy took a closer look at the third brother's face. It was Zhao Jianbai, the young heir of the Zhao family. The boy realized who had run over his sister. He will pay for it. Someone knocked at the house. The young man held his breath. The delivery boy knocked on the door. The young man wondered if it was too late to deliver the goods. But the owner of this house is dead. We must pretend to be that master. The guy thought the delivery guy looked worried. That should be good for him, I guess. The young man told the delivery man to leave the delivery by the door and walk away. The courier did so, left the package, and left. Lin Ke wondered why the car didn't leave. Lin Ke opened the door and looked at the departing courier. There was no package near the door. The car continued to stand still. The young man walked to the car and opened the back door. There were bars. It looked like an animal cage. Do they really order things like that? Suddenly, a zombie pounced on the young man from the other side of the bars. It was Zhao Chenggan. Lin Ke had time to be frightened. The young man barely had time to jump backwards away from the car before the zombie grabbed him. Lin Ke thought that the Zhao family really cared about their reputation. They immediately rushed to deliver their son from that lab. Wow, that's quite a delivery, the young man thought. According to the law of this city, temporary zombies found in the city can only be handled by the person who found them. If the zombie poses a danger, he is destroyed. The young man took a picture of this zombie on his smartphone camera. He thought that even though he was already dead, he could help in overthrowing the Zhao family. Lin Ke knew that this kind of evidence would definitely ruin their reputation. The young man decided, if this video spreads, the Zhao family will definitely pay for what they have done. And if the information about the experiments is added, the family will face hard times. The guy thought, if Zhao's zombie died an unnatural death, he had a lot of time. He's at most level D9. The young man decided to open the cage. He pushed the button. The cage slowly opened. The zombie jumped outside and lunged at Lin Ke. The guy using his strength and his blade immediately met this zombie. Lin Ke put this monster on his blade. It happened very quickly. The zombie was lying on the ground with his heart pierced. The young man clutched the time crystal in his fist. The young man took over 5,000 days from the zombie. Before that, he had gotten 3,000 days from his older brother, and found some time cards in the house. It might not be long before he could raise his mind power to C1. The young man went back into the house. A few minutes later, several SUVs were already parked near the courier car. There were people standing beside them. These men were told that the young master doesn't like people entering his house, so they will have to wait outside. The people waited patiently. They did not ask any questions. One of the men who arrived went into the house. He had to get instructions. The owner of the house had his back to him. He told the second young gentleman to take his brother home. Lin Ke, standing with his back to the guy, realized that it came from the Zhao family. The man recognized Lin Ke in front of him and asked what he was doing here. The man asked the young man where the other young gentleman was. The evening was no longer languid. The man, assessed with Lin Ke's gaze, didn't look like this guy knew how to fight. Lin Ke thought that his interlocutor was at least at the C1 level. Guy figured a gun was no problem for his opponent. We need to move into close quarters. The young man decided to be sly and asked if Zhao Jian wasn't behind him. The ruse worked. The man turned around instinctively. At the same instant, Lin Ke pounced on his opponent and said that even the workers in this family are useless. Lin Ke drew his blade. He decided to make a swift dash. His opponent used an enhanced skill. The young man swung and struck. His fist missed its target. The man said that Lin Ke was too weak. The opponents set themselves up for a serious confrontation. Everyone was evaluating the opponent. The impact was very strong, and Lin Ke flew backwards. This fire element technique, fire ring, said his opponent. Some fire elemental fighters can create a ring of fire around themselves to ward off enemies. There is a disadvantage. This ring cannot be used continuously. The young man thought that he had recently reached the C1 level. He would be able to handle his opponent. The opponent said if the young man didn't chicken out, let him try again. The guy thought it was a great receiver of shots of fire. He blocked his path of retreat. His opponent has some pretty good experience fighting in a small space. Lin Ke thought that he should hurry up before his opponent came to his senses. The guy ran and blocked the fireballs his opponent was releasing at him. Lin Ke used an improved skill and reflected the fireballs that his opponent directed at him. He turned those fireballs into ashes. The young man decided that the attack speed was slow. The guy tried dodging those fireballs. Lin Ke tried to leap the fire barrier. His opponent watched his actions with interest. The young man managed to break through. He did not expect the fire to be so strong. The guy had a lot of experience fighting temporary zombies, but this was the first time he met an elemental owner. Also, a C1 level fighter. The opponent asked Lin Ke where the other young master was, and he wouldn't attack. The guy said that the one had already made a mess. There are a lot of workers outside, so there is no way out. Lin Ke pulled out a gun and fired. The opponent dodged the bullet. It was unbelievable. The man said that the gun is useless against an elemental man, although his body is slow, but he notices even as Lin Ke pulls the trigger. The guy said he knew about it too. The opponent asked what he meant by that. The fire alarm went off. The young man said he wasn't even aiming. He was aiming at the alarm. The opponent says these droplets are not enough. He'll vaporize them in no time. The young man agreed that it wasn't enough, but thanks to them, he would be able to defeat him. The guy used his enhanced abilities. Thunder Serpent. It was terrifying. The opponent was surprised that he was the one who asked. The young man patted his hand on the water that had appeared due to the fire alarm going off. The man didn't understand how this was possible. Lin Ke is only strong physically. How can he have an element at the same time? The snake opened its maw and prepared to lunge. The opponent was defeated. His body was dissected and bleeding. His mouth was bleeding. Everyone outside heard the noise, wondering what happened. Something might have caught fire. We should check it out. Everyone went inside and saw their eldest lying on the floor not moving. There are flames blazing all around. Lin Ke is standing next to him. The young men thought this guy's strength is great. He is physically very good at fighting. The opponents began to unbuckle their belts. The young man thought that the opponents had power belts that increased strength, and they could increase the fire element. But thunder was stronger than lightning, and these belts would do nothing to him. The opponents said it was Lin Ke and they had to destroy him, so they opened fire on him. The guy was dodging shots. The bullets flew past. The young man thought they shouldn't reveal that he had the element of lightning. Otherwise, there would be even more problems. The guy knew that none of his opponents should be left alive. The building was going up in flames. The fire broke out. The opponents were all destroyed. The young man thought that the fire was increasing. He should leave soon. The young man heard the sound of sirens outside. They came so fast, he thought. The guy ran outside and ran away from that house. More people drove up to the hothouse. The young man was already far away. The guy was watching from the bushes. There are too many people there with strong weapons. There's nothing for him to do there now. The young man climbed to the roof of the house. Here he was safe for the time being. A young man approached the system and asked to run a store. He was interested in a medicine. He got it. The young man drank the medicine and thought that Zhao Jianbai should pay for his crime. Lin Ke decided that before it was too late, he needed to destroy the Zhao family. Otherwise, it would be harder with a new arrest warrant. The young man realized that this family was not so simple, and it was worth being careful. Otherwise, not only would he fail to cure his sister, but he'd be setting himself up. The young man familiarized himself with information about this family. They make money even from poor people. Their influence is unbelievable. It won't be easy to defeat this family. The guy decided he needed to go back and come up with a plan. The young man went to the door of the house where he had left the girls. He realized that they had not gone out. Linka decided that Shu Wei is pretty reliable. She doesn't walk or run around on the streets. Shu Wei saw the young man and rejoiced. He had finally returned. The girl said she had not slept a wink. A lot of things had happened. The guy wondered why she wasn't resting. The girl showed the young man the information that there had been a fire in the town. A house had burned down completely. He asked if she was thinking about him. The girl said she had checked everything on the internet. It was the house of the second son of the Zhao family. The girl said she was thinking about him. He's pretty strong. The guy got upset. What's he got to do with it? The young man said the girl could go rest. He will watch his sister. Shu Wei said she went to sleep. The young man walked over to his sister's bed. His sister is in a coma and only needs glucose. Otherwise, things would be much worse with finding medication. The young man took his sister's hand. The guy said he found the bad guy who did this to her, and he's gonna get his revenge soon. It was the morning of the next day. Shu Wei came out of her room sleepy. She had slept all night. A young man stood with the groceries. The girl gladly proceeded to breakfast. She asked the young man, he ran so freely in the afternoon, if he was afraid of running into the Knights of Glory. The guy stated that his arrest warrant was lifted. The girl said that's great, and they could stay here. The young man replied that he had other things to do. He needed to get to the inner area. The girl was indignant. The guy will go to the inner neighborhood, eat the flavorful, delicious food there, and leave her here to eat bread and noodles. The young man said he's not going to have fun. He wants to avenge his sister. The girl said that revenge is always dangerous. The young man took Shu Wei's hand and said that he had a plan. The young men, holding hands, looked into each other's eyes. The girl said that the young man must be careful. He must not forget that he had promised to bring her home. The guy said nothing would happen to him, and walked away. The young man put on a mask. He thought that even though the warrant for his arrest had been lifted, but if Zhao's family found out that he was alive, there would be trouble. A young man walking past people overheard a conversation. They say the coach of the Doomsday Camp is dead. His car was driven away, and then his house was completely burned down. The guy thought that the instructor's heart was damaged, so he wouldn't be able to turn into a zombie. Although the young man stole the instructor's car, but he turned on a special mode and the car cannot be traced. The guy drove up to the edge of the outer zone. He's been here before. Lin Qias saw an advertisement with his picture on it. It said that he was wanted for a reward. The guy thought, if he didn't want any trouble, he should use the old methods. The young man approached the grate that separated the areas. Anyone who wants to enter the inner region must carry 3,000 days' worth. The administration of the inner regions is much stricter. Therefore, crime is much less there. Within 1 second, the young man jumped over a tall fence. For a C1 fighter, this is no problem. This limitation was not originally adapted for C1 fighters. The guy was traveling on foot in the inner region, and thought, if he had a C1 level, it was possible not to have 3,000 days. Inner neighborhood. The guy thought the inner area was thriving. He would have been here several times before. Each time, he couldn't escape the feeling. The young man turned on the navigator. This made it easier for him to reach his destination. Seton Hotel, 5 stars. Lin Ke went to the front desk and asked for a room on the north side. One night in this hotel cost 20 days. That's twice the price of the outside area. What you don't do for revenge. The young man went to his room. That's what he needed. The young man went to the window. He slid the curtains open. The Zhao family mansion appeared in front of him. This building was heavily guarded. Their armed men were everywhere. You wouldn't get a fly in there for nothing. The young man was surreptitiously observing through binoculars. This family is rich and brave. They have C-level fighters in their guards. Lin Ke thought, to get back at him, the family must have C1 level fighters. The young man was watching the mansion through the window and making notes on the paper. The young man carefully wrote everything down. He wrote down all his observations on paper. It had been 5 days and his subject had never left the house. The guy decided he didn't stand a chance. He hadn't figured out how to break into the house yet. The young man remembered that he had a flash drive from the lab. This flash drive contained evidence about the Zhao family's illegal experiments. It would be hard for them to escape punishment. The guy decided that he would avenge his sister on his own. The young man picked up the smartphone. It rang. An unknown number. A young man got information on this family from closed sources on the black market. It cost him 100 days. The young man realized that a family from the hinterland controlled much of the pharmaceutical industry. The boy figured they had almost all the knights on their side now. The young man needed to calm down. He decided to do a process of meditation. The young man was meditating. A flame even flared up in front of him. The guy opened his eyes and realized that he had reached the C1 level. He'd made it. The young man thought that going from D9 level to C1 level was a threshold, and the difficulty of advancing greatly increased. There are countless people stuck here. The young man looked at the time. However, a breakthrough gives a great leap in strength. The guy decided to do a warm-up and physical workout. The young man didn't expect such strength. He didn't even have to drink the genetic potion. The system said that due to his upgrade to C1, he received a favorable lottery. A young man decided to participate in this lottery. His invisibility cloak proved very useful. The young man put on this cape and tried to experiment. The young man remembered that this was just a godsend. This way, he would not only be able to run away from the Zhao family, but also from the temporary zombies. The young man also remembered that this crying consumed too much energy. The guy decided that with this cloak and his physical and mental strength, he would be able to defeat the Zhao family quite well. But after that, he would have to try to get out of there. The young man continued to meditate while releasing a large amount of energy. He must raise his strength to C1 and use the flash drive to lure out the Zhao family members to take revenge on them later. The guy had reached the level of starry sky meditation. He didn't need hope anymore. The next day, the young man received another lucrative raffle. He wonders what's going to happen this time. Lin Ke had gotten a new B-level skill in the lottery. It's a lightning rod. The young man decided to test the new skill. This technique improves the young man's body. The guy even noticed that his perception was getting better, and he was able to spot an insect in the corner of the room, which was hidden from view. The young man's perception was on the level of sensation. He felt a waiter coming down the corridor. The guy noticed someone sleeping in the next room. The young man thought this technique was too good. It makes all his senses at the C1 level. Thus, he would be able to defeat even a C4 level fighter. Thunderbolt was worth 3,000 days. The guy thought if he advanced the skill to the third stage, it would be even more useful, but it costs a lot of days. The young man looked out over the city from his hotel room. With the lightning rod, his chances of success were even better. The boy had been practicing all day. He didn't feel tired. On the contrary, he felt a surge of strength. The young man continued to make notes in his notebook. The head of the Zhao family leads a sedate life. He rarely leaves the house. There were few opportunities for the young man. The risk was great. The guy had an idea. He figured out how to proceed. The young man sent an anonymous email pointing out the Zhao family's crimes. 50 minutes later, a car pulled up to the house. Lin Ke looked through the binoculars. The head of Zhao Chong hurriedly left. It seems that he had gotten the news. The Zhao family is indeed powerful. Guy realized that the Zhao family was being helped by the Wu family. They were companions in business. No matter how powerful the Zhao family was, such a big trouble. It wasn't something the Zhao family could handle on their own. The young man relentlessly repeated that Zhao Jianbai should pay for his sister's blood. The gate of the Zhao family estate. 2 guards are standing there. One tells the newcomer not to be too nervous. There are 30 of them, just regular guards. Not to mention the earth mages who rotate and help them too. The newcomer said. He had heard that people with earth abilities could hear other people's footsteps at a great distance. The second guard said that it wasn't about hearing. As long as one walks on the ground, earth magic can sense it. The guard asked the companion if he would smoke. He said he didn't smoke. It's expensive and time-consuming. He quit a long time ago. The guard said, "Whatever you want, that's your business." Suddenly there was some rustling nearby. The guards asked who was there. The senior guard said it was probably a cat. Nothing usually happens on the night shift. There was a sound like someone jumping over a fence. Next came the sound of footsteps on the sidewalk. It was a young man wearing an invisibility cloak. He thought that the Zhao family had taken over almost all the important medical facilities in the city, like Uncle Zhang's hospital and the place where his sister was treated. The young man realized that huge sums of money were being spent there. A young man in a raincoat was advancing through the territory. No one saw him. Botanical garden. A young man was smoking there too. The young man heard some sounds. He thought that the rat had come to its trap. The guy ran somewhere. He thought he was going to catch a rat. The young man stopped and listened. He stood still and did not move. The guy thought he could feel movement in this place. Could he be wrong? The young man saw someone lying down. The guy walked over to the man lying down and saw a mark on his neck. He thought that a D8 level fighter had been struck by a knife stab, at least a C1 level fighter. The boy listened, and again he heard some footsteps. The young man turned around. What an obsession. Suddenly, at this moment, someone jumped up, kicked, and felled the young man. Lin Ke thought that earthly ways gave him an incredible sensitivity to the movement around him. Lin Ko made sure that when approaching the man of the land, the man could do nothing. The guard said, "Improved skill level D, stone armor." The guard yelled that luckily he reacted quickly and sent the guy away. This guard used an improved level D skill, earthquake. There was a crack in the ground, and there was a rumbling sound. The whole place shook. Link, in his invisible incarnation, headed toward the guard. The young man hit the guard for all his strength. He fell headlong from the blow. The young man thought that this was a terrifying power. Such an attack should attract attention. Then his plan is in jeopardy. The guy tried to hide the guard. He pulled his body aside. Lin Ke cautiously walked to the window and tried to open it. It didn't work. After that, the young man went to the door and tried to open it. The guy thought as he tried opening a few entrances. It didn't work. They must be locked from the inside. At that moment, one of the guards came out for a smoke. The door was open. Lin Ke thought it was the right opportunity. So he went inside the building. The door closed behind the young man. The inside of the building was buzzing with activity. There were girls everywhere. A tray of dishes fell from one of the girls. There was a clinking sound. The girls got scared and started whispering. It's good that no one came out. If the master had seen, there would have been trouble. But he never seems to come out at night. According to the young man's observations, his target's room is in the south wing, on the second floor. Lin Ke stealthily walked up the stairs to the top of the stairs. He then followed the corridor of the second floor. The boy stealthily entered the room. He did it quietly. Young Zhao was in the room with the girl. He was flirting with her. The girl was flirtatious. The young man thought that both his brothers were dead, and he had the nerve to party. The girl asked if it was true that his youngest brother had died. The young man said it was. And it seems that his other brother is also missing. Or had an accident and his house burned down. His body hasn't been found, but he's probably dead. The girl asked with horror why he was so happy about his brother's death. The boy said, "Didn't it mean he didn't have to share the inheritance with anyone?" The young man realized how he could have forgotten. Zhao's family was rotten. Today they would all be reunited. Lin Ke took off his invisibility cloak and entered the room. The young man rushed towards his enemy and shouted, "Zhao Jianbao, die!" Nothing could stop the young man. The guy was already swinging with the intention of delivering a devastating blow. He turned around and saw him. There was horror in the girl's eyes. Zhao yelled out what was the matter. Zhao shoved the girl at her attacker and bounced to the side. Lin Ke had to hold on to the girl to keep her from falling. The girl found herself between the young men. Terror was still in her eyes. Lin Ke said that a person who uses others as a shield is a loser. Zhao pounced on his opponent. He was not a timid man. Zhao punched his attacker. Zhao's fist passed through the attacker's body. Zhao lost his balance and was carried sideways after the impact. Lin Ke planted his opponent on his knee with a powerful punch. Zhao clutched his stomach in pain. He couldn't understand how this was possible. After all, he was a C3 level fighter. The young man said that a C3 ranked fighter could do it to him, when he was filled with potions and serums. Zhao thought that he had never seen such a thing. Where did this young man come from? And what he wants? Zhao asked who he was, and how dare he attack his family. Lin Ke said he was the one who would kill him. Zhao thought that his opponent was determined. The man thought, just push the button and he'll die, no matter how strong he was. Qi rushed straight to the button. A few moments left, and a few meters. Zhao had already reached out his hand to press the red button. It seemed like he was saved. Suddenly, a gunshot rang out and blood flowed from his hand. The man was even more frightened. Lin Ke held the weapon in his hand and was aiming at his opponent. He was ready to take another shot. His hand would not waver. Zhao pleaded. He asked not to kill him. He could give as much time as he needed. It wasn't a problem for him. Lin Ke said that time was of no importance to him in this case. It would not pay for his sister's health. Zhao was very surprised. What does sister have to do with this? Lin Ke claimed that he hit his sister with his car, and she is still in a coma. Zhao began to recall the events of that day. When it all happened, a young man and a girl are driving a beautiful sports car at high speed. A young man asks his girlfriend if she knows how to drive a car. The guy is in a good mood. The girl reprimanded the guy. He'd better drive slower, so he doesn't have an accident, and he wouldn't hit anyone. The guy objected. Every day people die in droves. Nothing would happen if he killed a few today. The girl was frightened, and said if he killed someone, he'd be punished. That's not right. The guy said he's from the Zhao family. No one would dare punish him. He even wanted to show it to the girl. A young man saw who you were on the road, and decided that's what he wanted. An unfamiliar girl was crossing the road at a crosswalk. The driver pressed the gas pedal. The car sped up. The stranger's purse flew into the air. The car, accelerating, was leaving the place. The girl was lying on the crosswalk, bleeding. Gawkers gathered around her. Jay remembered all of this. He asked if the young man was her brother. Lin Ke asked, not expecting revenge to come so quickly. Zhao thought that he should hold on. Gotta stall for time. That guy just fired a shot. The guards will be here soon. Lin Ke stated, stop talking. There was nothing to talk about in this case. The guy's been looking for him for a long time. Now he's not gonna let him go. The young man pointed his gun at his opponent and pulled the trigger. A shot rang out. His opponent was shot in the chest and cried out. Blood splattered in all directions. The young man looked at Zhao's corpse lying on the floor. He had finally gotten his revenge. The guy decided to check the contents of this Zhao's desk, so he opened the drawer. There was the sound of people approaching. The young man thought they had come very quickly. They were two people, the brother of the head of the family and the family guard. Both were sea-level fighters. Zhao Mo asked the young man who he was. The men looked around the room. Lin Qi decided that it was necessary to leave. The boy assessed his opponents with a glance and decided that they were strong. It would be hard to deal with them. Zhao called the young man a boy who got involved in the wrong business. Zhao Mo saw the young man on the floor. He shouted with rage. How dare he kill his nephew? May he be cursed! The guy was very surprised. It turned out that the head of the family had a C4 level brother. Why was there no information about him? Zhao Mo pounced on the young man with hatred. He was ready to destroy him. The guy immediately realized that his opponent was very strong. He was definitely a master who had been in fights not for life, but to the death. Lin Ke decided that the best option was to leave this house, without getting into a confrontation. The guard rushed after him and shouted that he would not escape. He shouted for the guard to leave the young man to him. Lin Qi looked back and saw that they were trying to attack him using water. The guy thought that the opponent had rare water abilities. The young man knew, although water mages were not very powerful, they had a much higher status than normal magics in this apocalyptic environment where water was in short supply. The young man tried to counter this water with his fiery fist of rage. The guy used a mountain-crushing punch. His fist was engulfed in flames. Lin Qi jumped out the window on the street. The young man landed on the ground along with the shattered glass. There was no time to think. The guard and Zhao Mo rushed after the boy through the window. He shouldn't leave, they thought. 65. Both men also jumped out of the window into the street. The pursuit continued. The pursuers looked around. The young man was nowhere to be seen. Zhao Mo said he could handle it himself, and sent a guard to take care of his nephew. The men split up. One went back to the house. The other went into the woods to look for them. The guard heard some rustling in the bushes and at the same instant received a blow to the jaw. Lin Ke said, he can't let the scumbag Zhao Jianbai be saved. The guard and Lin Ke were stacked against each other, ready for hand-to-hand combat. At that moment, some people showed themselves passing by. The guard said the young man was about to die. Help is on the way. Lin Ke thought that Zhao Jianbai shouldn't be able to survive. The guard has healing powers besides water abilities. The young man couldn't let the guard save this Zhao. The guard shrank back. He began to emit a lot of light. The guy thought to himself as his opponent quickly fills the air around him with energy. He really is capable. The young man saw the pendant on his opponent's chest. He realized that was what it was all about. At the same second, Lin Qi made a swift leap. Our hero, once again, used a mountain-destroying strike. It was all very lightning fast. In an instant, Lin Ke threw a punch at his opponent. The punch was incredibly powerful. The guard didn't expect such an onslaught and flew far back. There was a crunch. It was the sound of ribs breaking. The guard had a hard time. The consequence of this blow was that the guard flew far back and hit the wall. The wall cracked. The guard was wearing a level D weapon concentration pendant, which helped speed up the transformation of air into a carrier element and helped increase the attack power. The pendant remained in the young man's hands. The guard was disarmed. Lin Qi heard someone shouting that he was there. He had been discovered. A group of security guards opened fire on the young man. The guy dodged bullets. None of them reached the target. The guards thought, how could this be possible? This young man is really at the C1 level. All of their bullets passed by. One of the guards shouted, "Stop talking, he must be destroyed." The shooting continued. The guy kept dodging the bullets flying towards him. It was unreal. The young man decided that he shouldn't get into a melee with these guards. He should find a way to get back to the second floor and check on Zhao's condition. After that, he should leave right away. The guy heard someone approaching from behind. It was Zhao Mo. At the last moment, the young man was able to dodge the blow. The attacker missed and lost his balance. The blow went straight into the ground. There was a dent. The guy thought it was a terrifying power. He's probably using a level C technique. His gloves, that's an improvement on a level C weapon. The boy concluded, if he had been any slower, he would have died by now. He was saved by his quick reactions. The young man noticed that he was seriously injured. He wouldn't live for long. If he took out this Zhao, he would be able to loot the entire family, and by then, his strength and ability level would increase significantly. Zhao Mo continued to attack the young man. The guy was dodging again. The attacker didn't reach the target. A fireball appeared in Zhao Mo's hands. It was not good. The opponent threw a punch, an improved level C technique, a tiger mouth punch. The young man realized that he only had to attack. The guy used his mountain-shattering kick again. There was an explosion, and everything went up in smoke. The guards couldn't see anything. Zhao Mo flew off and hit the tree. The impact was so strong that the tree broke in half. The big man remained seated under the tree. He didn't move. The guards couldn't believe their eyes. Just like what happened to Zhao Mo. The guards saw a shadow appear out of the smoke. Tension was building. Lin Qi appeared from the shadows. In his hand, he held his blade. Lightning flashed around him. The guards started asking questions. It must be a reinforcement technique, or a special reinforcement technique. This young man knocked out 2 level C people. The guy thought it was the lightning rod. He formed this explosion. The young man felt his power overflowing. Unfortunately, he couldn't use it anymore. You can't attract a lot of noise. Zhao Mo came to his senses, jumped up, and rushed at Lin Qi. The young man had time to notice all of this. The young man decided to finish him off for good. The boy prepared to strike. The 2 men met. They exchanged a series of punches. The punches landed, but the fighters withstood them. The guards watched this confrontation. It was incredible. The warriors were moving very fast. Lin Qi thought that his opponent was strong. Without the thunderbolt, it wouldn't have lasted even 10 strikes. The young man remembered that he had no time to waste. These fights would delay him. The opponents clashed fists, executing their blows, which released a tremendous amount of energy. After that flash, the opponents flew back. The distance between them increased. The guy thought it was time to leave. He'd been here a long time. The guards decided that the young man could not be allowed to escape, so they opened fire on him to kill him. The young man just started to run away, dodging the bullets that whistled over his head. Zhao Mo continued to pursue the young man. The guy thought that his opponent was very strong, but inferior in speed. A guard ran up and said that the young gentleman had turned into a temporary zombie, and there was no way to stop him. Zhao Mo paused. He was digesting the information. The big man vowed to find out who the attacker was. There was hatred in his eyes. Lin Qi was hiding in the garden near the house. He noticed Zhao Mo running into the building. The guy continued to watch. In his room, young Zhao turned into a monster. This zombie was screaming loudly. The boy realized that his mission was now accomplished. He said he had avenged his sister. The young man stood up and looked out over the night city. There was nothing more for him to do here. The guy jumped over the fence and began to move away from Zhao Manor. The boy was getting farther and farther away. He had other things to worry about now. The headquarters of the Marauder Knights. Fighters practice hand-to-hand combat. Everyone participates in sparring. Main office. The boss is sitting in his chair. The Knight of the Marauders has a visitor. It was a stern-looking man. He was focused and serious. The boss of the Marauder Knights, Wu Qishan, turned to face the visitor. He was holding a book in his hands. The next instant, this book flew into the face of the stern man. Wu Qishan said in a rage, "How dare he bring such bad news?" The knight's boss told the man if he knew how much effort the man had put into this plan. The man said it was an accident. He didn't want to jeopardize the plan, and he called the boss his uncle. Wu Qishan said, "If something goes wrong this time, no one will be able to get away with it." The man screamed that this guy couldn't do anything to them. "He's a nobody." The nephew added, "A little more and the whole town would belong to his uncle." Wu Qishan said that there is no need to hurry. Foreign economic ties have not yet been established. There is still work to be done. The man said, "Wasn't there any temporary zombies left outside to break down the gate?" Uncle said that breaking down the gate is not the answer. The head of the city also has knights errant and protectors. Looters will be useless. Someone knocked on the door. Wu Qishan said to come in. The doors opened and a warrior entered. He addressed the commander-in-chief. Wu Qishan gave the order, "Mobilize everyone before dawn. Be sure to catch Lin Qi and get the original files directly into his hands." The man shouted that this Lin Qi was just a little kid. All the knights and marauders would be able to catch him before dawn. Wu Qishan also ordered his nephew to be locked up. The man was surprised and frightened. The assistant commander-in-chief got ready to execute the order. The man was grabbed by his arms and was directed to leave. The man shouted why his uncle was doing this to him. Wu Qishan stated, "If something goes wrong, his life will be a decoy." The man asked what it meant. The uncle stated that all the things were made by the Zhao family, and his Wu family didn't know anything about it. The man screamed that his uncle was going to use him as a scapegoat. He realized he was in trouble. Wu Qishan said that they need success. Failure in this case is unacceptable. The assistant commander-in-chief assembled all the personnel. The Marauder Knight showed Lin Qi's photo and said that he was the most wanted person in the city. His level is D9. Reward for whoever can catch him. 10,000 days and promotion to commander. That should be a good incentive. The warriors rejoiced. This is a very good reward. Who is this guy anyway? A simple D9 fighter. The marauding knight commanded everyone to go on a search. They have very little time. All the wars were ready to be searched. They were spurred on by a very big reward. People scattered throughout the city. They were moving around in whatever they could find. They wanted to check every inch of the city. Lin Qi was walking through the city at night. A group of motorcyclists were catching up with him. They were the ones who were searching for the young man. The marauding knights were armed. They were willing to do anything to get the reward. Lin Qi wondered why these marauders were traveling in groups around the city. There's a reason. 2 guys on a motorcycle spotted a young man. One of them thought it was the one they were looking for. The other said it was unlikely. Hundreds of people are looking for him. They can't be that lucky. The first one said enough wasted time. He's leaving town tomorrow to get resources, so he needs to conserve energy. The young man overheard this conversation and realized that the marauders were controlled by the Wu family. If he wanted to survive, He had to hold out until dawn. Suddenly the guy was hit by someone. It happened instantly, and he had no time to react. The blow was so strong that the young man broke through the wall. But it did not crush him. A big man approached him. The young man recognized him. It was Zhao Mo. The big man announced that he had finally found him. Lin Qi was very surprised. It's him again. He wouldn't let it go. The boy thought that this place was too close to cover. You can't fight here. There was nothing left for the young man to do but run away. He jumped up and rushed away. The bully looked after the fleeing young man. Zhao Mo overtook the young man in a second and stood in front of him. There's no escaping this, he thought. The young man decided that he had to come up with something right away. A new plan. The guy stood up to his full height and turned on the thunderbolt mode. Everything around him glowed. The young man had no special plan and had to engage in hand-to-hand combat. The bully was much more powerful, and his punches were stronger. However, the guy dodged his opponent's next attack and gave him a powerful kick to the jaw. Thunderbolt mode helped. From afar, an explosion was seen and sparks flying. Lightning bolts appeared. Zhao Mo thought that with his strengthening skill, the young man's strength had increased. This guy killed his nephew and the others. Therefore, he is not destined to see the dawn. Zhao Mo landed blow after blow. Lin Qi effectively repelled them. None of the opponents could achieve an advantage. The young man thought that ordinary blows would not defeat his opponent. He had to think of another, more effective way.
Zhao Mo acted like a killing machine. He didn't know fatigue. The young man couldn't afford to expend much energy.
The guy realized that he was not only being persecuted by the Zhao and Wu families, but also by the entire city. As soon as the world found out that physical strength could exist in the same body as elemental strength, he would be turned in for experiments. The guy decided that against his opponent, he could use his lightning bolt. It might help him finish the fight faster. The young man decided that he had to get his sister and get out of town as soon as possible. Zhao Mo was getting nervous because he couldn't handle this young man. Initially, it seemed to him that the forces were not equal. The boy skillfully blocked the bulky man's punches. Zhao Mo swung and intended to strike with all his might and shouted, "Die, rascal!" Once again, the opponent's fists came into contact. The energy was incredibly strong, and a great charge of it was released. Once again, Zhao Mo rolled backwards, but he stayed on his feet. Lin Qi also rolled backwards. He fell on one knee, but he held on. The guy decided to do something extraordinary. His opponent made him do it. Zhao Mo looked at the young man's preparation with astonishment. The big man wondered what he was going to do. His actions were astonishing. The young man continued his suspicious manipulations. His movements were incomprehensible. The big guy said he found that girl and the young man's sister. The young man could not believe his ears. Had they really been discovered? He thought they were safe. Zhao Mo said that he recognizes the young man's strength, but now he has hostages, and that's a force to be reckoned with. Lin Ke asked what he wanted. Now we have to do things differently, he thought. The big guy said he was interested in the flash drive with the files, and then he'll let the girls go. That's his offer. The young man said he couldn't have the flash drive with him. After all, it was his last trump card. The boy knew he must not give the flash drive, then it would be the end. Zhang Mo gave the young man 10 seconds to think. He must make a decision right now. Otherwise, the big guy would give the order for the girls to be destroyed. There was only one thing going through the guy's head. We have to save his sister. We have to do something. Time passed and the big man said, it seems he didn't care much for his sister. The young man had made his own choice. Zhao Mo made a phone call to someone. The caller asked if he had caught the young man. The big man said the young man was in his hands. The caller asked what happened to the files. Zhao Mo said he wouldn't give up the files. We'll have to kill him. The caller said the young man can't be killed until they get the files, and ordered me to bring him in. The big man said the young man was lucky this time. The guy realized they were afraid he would release the files, so they won't do anything with his sister right now. The only way to negotiate with them would be to use the flash drive. Zhao Mo is taking the young man to see his boss. The vehicle pulled up to one of the Marauder Knights' hulks. The young man got out of the car and realized that he had been brought to the Marauders' headquarters. The puzzle was beginning to come together. Zhao Mo said that the headquarters of the Marauder Knights, the safest place in the city, for those who have never seen the outside world. If there is an accident, this place immediately turns into a safe haven. This headquarters was heavily guarded. Armed men were everywhere. The young man looked around the sides here, so many sea-level fighters with his strength. The boy looked at these young men and thought that he himself would not survive here. Not like bringing his sister here. The young man was reassured by the fact that he had hidden the files well. He doesn't have them with him. The guy remembered putting the flash drive in a box and hiding it under a tree root. Lin Qi looked at the guards. Every single one of them was at least C4 level. This place was very serious. The boy was led to the oldest man. The young man was a little tense. The boy thought, this must be Chishan, the head of the Marauder Knights. The man stood with his back to the young man. There were enough bodyguards in the room. The guy was evaluating the master. Rumor had it he was a C9. He'd never met anyone like him before. The young man watched with rapt attention. This man is quite strong. C9. That's almost the maximum level. The boy thought that just one look at him made the blood run cold in his veins. The old man turned to face the young man and asked if he was Lin Kei. The boy nodded affirmatively and said it was him. The young man gritted his teeth. He tried not to show his excitement. The old man told the young man that he was brave, but he shouldn't talk like that around here. The young man couldn't resist shouting out where his sister was. That was what worried him the most right now. The old man waved at one of the guards. The man did not part with his cigar. The guard opened the door to the hallway. The young man heard the squeak of a wheelchair wheel. The young man's sister appeared on the doorstep. One of the guards was carrying her cart. Shu Wei was walking beside her. The girl saw the young man and joyfully called him by name. The young man asked how they were feeling. The girl said she was fine. It all seemed suspicious to the guy. Why are they so kind? They don't want to appear noble. The old man said that he didn't let the girls get hurt. He can also get the services of the best doctor in this city. It is also available to him to use the most advanced medical equipment to cure the girl. The old man squinted his eyes and added, "Of course, it's all for the files on the flash drive." The young man thought, he's no fool. Once he gives them back the files, the three of them will all die. All of this could be avoided by holding out until dawn, the old man added, so that his son wouldn't stall. He made a very good offer. You don't turn down an offer like that. The young man looked at the old man without looking away. This old man is not bad. The guy said his sister was hit by Zhao Jianbai's car, so he killed him. He also killed the other two brothers. Will the old man let him go after that? The old man took a drag on his cigar and said his word. His eyes sparkled. The young man wasn't going to believe him. At that time, the doors opened and a man ran into the room. He was on edge. The man ran up to Lin Kei and declared that he couldn't let him go. The man turned to Qishan and said that many of his family were already dead. They can't let this young man go. The man shouted, if he didn't have the files with him, under torture he would surely tell where they were. The old man gave the man a very powerful slap and said he was the guy who couldn't prevent it. The head of the Zhao family stood there, unsure of what to do. This was a great insult, but he couldn't go against Qishan. The old man said if it wasn't for Zhao, he wouldn't be standing here. If he violated his plan, he wouldn't live. The old man added. The guy heard this and thought, what other plan could there be? He had to figure it all out. The old man looked at the young man once more. He asked him what he thought about it. The old man added that the boy need not worry. The best medical team was under his control. The old man needed to finish the young man off. If the girl didn't recover fully, she would get the care she deserved.
The young man thought, how dare that old fox say that? If he is taken away, he will never see the sun again.
One of the bodyguards came over and said it was getting late, Commander. The old man calmly said, if the young man doesn't want to do it the good way, then they will do it the bad way. Qishan threw the cigar, turned around, and as he left, he told the bodyguard that he was leaving the young man to him. The guard said he only needed 10 minutes. The bodyguard waved his hand and told the girls to be taken away. Shu Wei fearfully shouted to Lin Kei to help her. The young man was angry. Something had to be done. They're taking the girls away. And then the most incredible thing happened. Another guard came running in and said the lord of the city was here. No one expected that. The old man was surprised by that too. It was a bit of a change of plans. The old man asked the guard how many people the lord of the city had brought with him. The guard said only one. They will be here soon. The old man thought this must be his assistant, a C6 level fighter. The old man ordered more people to be brought in and to keep the noise down. The young man's sister and Shui Wei walked out of the room. The guard warned that if they resisted, he would kill them all on the spot. You could tell he wasn't kidding. The young man thought, it looks like the city lord has seen those files. The Zhao and Wu families will be finished. The guard captain told his boss that the city lord used to have strength at level B, but he was recently badly injured. Now he's at level C9. If anything, they can handle him. Qishan said that the old man was used to peace. It was too late for him to get involved in conflicts, and he only brought one person with him. Jay replied that then they wouldn't need to implement their plan, and the residents would be calm. Everyone would be happy, and that would be a victory. The young man wondered why they all turned against the lord of the city. The boy looked at the guard. He estimated that his level was only C5. If we stealthily attack him, it shouldn't be a problem. The guy puts that plan on hold because the outside is probably full of guards. It's solidly elite, fighting the remaining temporary zombies every day. There are 4 knights in the city. One of the main tasks of the looter knights is to hunt time zombies and gather available supplies. The strength of the looters is comparable to that of the defenders who guard the city. The lord of the city entered the room. He was accompanied by 1 bodyguard. Qishan stood across the room. There were 2 bodyguards beside him. Lord Quanshena was a hunched old man of short stature. He was leaning on his wand. Qishan greeted the old man. A smile was depicted on his face. The old man asked why his opponent couldn't sleep tonight. Qishan asked what brought the lord of the city here. At this late hour, Shi Shuangsai Zhao immediately kneeled before the city lord. The man knelt down and addressed the lord of the city. He said he was wrong, he admits it, and he too is concerned for the welfare of this city. The old man asked why they were experimenting on innocent people. Zhao tried to justify himself. He said that this experiment was almost a success. If it was successful, time zombies would no longer be a threat. Zhao added that humans would be able to return to their position as the dominant power on Earth without hiding. The lord of the city said it was unacceptable to experiment with the lives of innocent people anyway. Qishan thought that the old man's condition was getting worse. His strength right now is only C9. Then why does he look full of life? Qishan believed that if everything went according to plan, they would achieve their goal. If they started now and something went wrong, all the hard work would go down the drain. Qi Shuang stated that it was his fault that Zhao had acted this way. He decided to deal with him himself. Zhao cried out in fear that his uncle wanted to kill him, and he needs help. Zhao shouted that he didn't want to be a scapegoat. It's impossible. And out of desperation, he took a stand, wanting to fight. Qishan looked at his bodyguard. He knew what to do. Qishan's bodyguard came up behind the city lord's guard and snapped his neck. Qishan turned to the lord of the city and said that he had put up with him for a long time, ever since they had cleaned up the place together. Does he remember why he became the lord of the city? The old man asked what he was going to do. Qishan said the lord of the city must be confused. Doesn't he realize what's going on here? The old man won't survive tonight. It's better for him to give up power right away so that his body remains intact. The lord of the city asked to whom he should hand over the power. Qishan said that of course, to him. The old man is still pretending to be a level B fighter. Qishan told his fighters, that's enough. It's time to finish with the old man. The bodyguards moved towards the old man. Lin Kei, who was watching this, decided that this was a good moment for him to escape. The young man told Shuwei to close her eyes. The girl squeezed her eyes shut. She was scared. The young man turned on the lightning rod mode. He turned it up really loud. It got dark everywhere. Nobody saw the kid. He could have gotten close to the guard, and no one saw him. The young man turned off the guard who was watching them. The passage was clear. The guy told Shuwei to catch up with him. The young men were leaving the area without attracting attention. The young man saw this picture. Qishan is on his knees. His bodyguards are all lying on the floor. In the middle stands the lord of the city, leaning on his crutch. Qishan couldn't believe it. Why is this old man still so strong? Qishan gave the command over the phone for everyone to start executing the plan. The old man asked what the other plan was. His opponent has stated that the plan is to wreak havoc in the city. It won't be long before the zombies burst through the gates of this city. The lord of the city was alarmed. This can't happen. Lin Qi realized this was their plan. For the sake of the city lord's seat, these people are willing to destroy the city. The old man read the news. The wandering zombies of time had suddenly gathered, and for some reason were approaching the city gates. The old man produced a kick with his foot in rage and knocked Qishan out. The impact was so strong that the man flew off and hit his back against the wall. The old man, pushing the guards away, rushed for the exit. No one was going to stop him. Shuwei asked the young man what they would do. The young man replied that they would move forward. The young men looked at the city and were frightened at what was happening there. There were fires blazing in the city, and there was a disaster. Temporary zombies made their way into the city. It was the beginning of chaos. Well, friends, I don't know about you, but I liked this manhwa. The plot itself is quite interesting and intriguing, so if you liked the video, then subscribe to the channel and write a comment about what you liked. If new chapters of this title are released, I will definitely make a continuation. All the best. See you soon.